Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Board of Selectmen regular meeting of Wednesday, May 8th, 2019. First item on our agenda is the Woodbridge Board of Education Superintendent Robert Gilbert. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The red button means it's on. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So good evening, and congratulations to those who enjoyed some good news on Monday night, and it's good to be back to talk to you another month later in our school year. I just passed around our most recent parent update, which was sent out on Friday to all families at Beecher Road School. So please enjoy that, as well as my recent entry in the Woodbridge Town News. And for those of you who look forward to the summer publication, we are starting to work on the publication, as you know, called The Bridge, which will be coming out to all Woodbridge residents in the summer to provide information and communication. Our most recent enrollment update, we continue to hold very steady at 846 students. Our current budget update, as I bring to you each month, from our most recent Board of Ed approved monthly report, which was March, we had a slight overall decrease in our deficit from 309K to 302K. The sped deficit went up a little bit, but underspending in other areas provided an overall decrease in that. As you know, this overall decrease, or this overall deficit of 302K includes $147,000 of unexpected facility costs with the summer August cleanup and the pool cleanup and the Van Zelm report. The special education deficit also includes the sped reduction of $50,000 from our budget meeting last May. We do anticipate that the overall deficit will go down by around $15,000 in our next month-end report, which is the April month-end report. We're preparing that now, and we hope and anticipate that the last months of the fiscal year, May and June, will have some additional positive changes in our deficit going down as we release our encumbrances, as we typically do at the end of the year. In regards to the April town budget hearing, I just want to say, as well as the entire budget process, I just want to again say I wish to thank all of you for the process that you've established, and of course to the Board of Finance for the process that they are very much in charge of, and also for the support you've given to us during this time of rising enrollment and rising student needs. I was going to give an extensive ad hoc committee update, but Jerry's going to do that later. But I'll just simply say that I want to thank you again for the time that you've spent on receiving the updates from the ad hoc committee, and also for the support you've provided as we move forward to remedy the HVAC concerns. And I know Jerry will update a little bit more later in the meeting. In terms of our Board of Education news, monthly subcommittee meetings continue in the policy, curriculum, facilities, and finance areas, and we also have a sustainability ad hoc committee, which has been very active and has now established a green team in the school. So we are now in the green team process, and looking forward to working in those areas to expand that at Beecher Road School. With the recent board elections concluded, we are planning at this point for a Board of Education summer retreat, probably a little more extensive than usual, with many new board members coming on to provide guidance and support to them on their roles and responsibilities. We typically have CABE, the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, run that kind of a training and that kind of a retreat, so that's what we're working on planning right now. In student news, our students in grades 3 through 6 are currently involved in taking the state Smarter Balance, or also known as SBAC testing in language arts and math, and so they're very, very involved this week and next week in showing what they know and doing their very best job on those online assessments. Yesterday we had our kindergarten orientation, and we welcomed both students and parents to an afternoon program, a very enthusiastic group, and a lot of promise for next year as they enter Beecher Road School for the first time. At our recent Board of Education meeting in April, our student council presented a summary of their activities and outreach to the town, which was very well received by the board, and the PTO held a very successful Booster-a-thon event last week at Beecher Road, combined wellness with emphasizing community and values and also raising funds for the PTO. So we thank everybody for their support of the PTO and of their activities and the recent Booster-a-thon. As we do every year, we survey our stakeholders, we survey our parents, our teachers and staff, and we survey our students as well. And so our annual survey window has just come to a conclusion, and we'll be preparing a report on those survey results, as we often do and always do, either at the June or July Board of Education meeting. As we kind of wrap up this report, we are looking ahead to a myriad of year-end activities and celebrations in the coming weeks. Our 6th grade DARE graduation takes place next week, and graduation for our grade 6 students is on Wednesday, June 12th, with the last day of school on June 13th. And not far off from there, we're ready to start our summer programs on June 24th. So that concludes my report. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have on that.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody have any questions?
Just out of curiosity, the kindergarten class that you're getting in, size-wise, how do you compare to some of the others?
So it may be a little early to tell. It was a little smaller than we might have anticipated, but we've had a lot of surprises sometimes in summer, so it was a little smaller. So we're watching that really closely because the trend has been getting larger, but yesterday didn't say that. So we'll keep you posted on that. Good question. Yeah.
Bob, I had a question about enrollment. How do you determine who is eligible to be enrolled at Beecher Road School?
So a family has to come in, and there's a registration process. There's paper. Well, it's no longer paperwork. It's online registration. There has to be proof of residency in a variety of ways, whether it's you know, a mortgage or a rental agreement or things like that. So we look at that. When there's questions about that, we have to dig a little deeper. But there is, it's not just simply I live here in Woodbridge and here's my address. We do ask for, and people need to show proof of their residency through, and usually there's a few bills that they have to show, you know, utility
Sure.
bills or things like that.
What about proof of relationship of the children to the family members?
So sometimes that we get into a situation where we sometimes have to see court documents where, you know, someone may have guardianship of a child, or so let's say if it's a grandparent where the parents are not in the picture, and so we generally will look at some kind of official documentation in that respect.
The reason that I asked that question, I mean, it doesn't come out of thin air. I've knocked on a lot of doors in this last campaign, and the thing that I've heard from, you know, more than one person are about children that get dropped off Sunday night at their neighbor's house, and then get picked up Friday after school at their neighbor's house. And I don't know, first of all, whether these are true, whether they're just allegations, or what the arrangement is. But it got me thinking about, you know, how we determine who we're paying for at Beecher Road School.
So what I will, so because it's a small town and because I want to try to protect confidentiality, what I will say is, in my time, during my time here, in my 3 years, we have, when it seems appropriate, taken steps to, there's no better word than investigate residency. And so we have done that, and sometimes we actually come up on the successful side, to your point, because sometimes there is that drop-off kind of approach. And it happens oftentimes when people want their kids, they may live in another town, but they really want their kids to come to Woodbridge Beecher Road School. So, so I guess rest assured, we do not just simply take everything just at face value. Obviously, we're very trusting, but when there's something that does not seem right, we do investigate residency, as many districts do, to ensure that the right people are in the right place.
Yeah, I know there's a provision for out-of-district students to go to Beecher Road School and pay tuition.
That's correct.
Right.
So there are a few, just a few,
Yep.
and that is the case. And by the contract, there is payment that is taking place. I can count those numbers on less than the fingers on one hand.
Okay.
But bottom line is yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to follow up, do we keep records of those investigations?
Yes.
Or those times when we ask for
If we do a residency investigation, or if any kind of manner of inquiry, there's usually a paper trail to that, where there's a request in writing, a response in writing, and so on and so forth, back and forth.
And that's in some file over.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anybody else?
I can just add to that. Sometimes parents who work will drop off their kids because the bus comes kind of late, so they'll drop them off at our bus stop or somebody else who can get them on the bus, and that is pretty common with the elementary school because the bus does come pretty late and they don't necessarily have the funds to pay for the extended day. So.
But they don't drop them off Sunday night and let them wait for the bus to Monday
No,
morning.
not Sunday night. This is like in the morning.
Thank you.
It's a long bus wait.
Right. Sure.
Okay, thank you. Thanks,
Thanks,
Bob.
Bob.
Okay, thank you very much.
Item 2 on the agenda is the first Selectmen's report. To begin my remarks tonight, I want to offer my congratulations to all those who were elected in our biennial town elections, which took place this past Monday, May 6th, especially members of the current Board of Selectmen, Mika Cardozo, Joe Prisco, and Joe Dye, who along with me have been reelected by our townspeople. I also send my appreciation to all those whose names appeared on the ballot. Running for office is an endeavor that involves many hours of personal sacrifice, and those who step up to make these efforts deserve our thanks. So I say thank you, and I welcome your input, and oops, I just skipped a whole line. Running for office is an endeavor that involves many hours of personal sacrifice, and those who step up to make these efforts deserve our thanks. So I say thank you, and I welcome your input and ideas. I know we are all united in our desire to make Woodbridge an even better place to call home. I would like to thank the registrars and the town clerks and all the poll workers for a real job well done. And please don't forget, if you haven't voted, today is the Amity budget referendum. And I have this on here to remind you, they're open till 8 p.m. tonight. It's quite slow over there. I was there. So we have to do that. I also thank the voters for coming out on Monday. You make our democracy function. I'm gratified by the vote of confidence in me as your first selectman. As I have said since the beginning of my term in office, I believe local government is at its best when it is collaborative and not partisan. I promise to continue working across the aisle to build consensus as your first selectman. Just a few quick updates on my activities since our last meeting, and I hope my voice holds out. On April 22nd, we held a preliminary budget hearing for next year's spending plan, which I attended along with the entire board. Thank you all for being there. On April 24th, I attended the monthly SCROG meeting, where I continue to keep up to date on ways we can share services with our surrounding communities and learn from what our neighbors are doing. On April 25th, I visited the Orange Community Nursery School, which has made a home for itself at our Congregational Church Parish House, right here on Meeting House Lane. While I was there, I was invited to read a storybook to the children. It was a delight, of course. On April 27th, I took part in the ceremonies on the green for the Bethwood Baseball opening day, where I also presented a citation to Dwight Rowland, who's in the audience, on behalf of the town of Woodbridge, to congratulate him for 35 years of service to the Bethwood Baseball League. On May 2nd, I took part in the National Day of Prayer, which took place indoors at the Center Building due to weather this year. May 5th, I attended the open house at the Old South School on Johnson Road, which was run by the Amity and Woodbridge Historical Society. My appreciation to all the members of that group who make these events possible so the public can deepen their understanding of our community's history. It was really a lovely event, despite the rain. Just yesterday, I took part in an official ribbon-cutting ceremony at a new restaurant in Amity Road, Palos, as we continue to focus attention on economic development efforts in our business district. I want to welcome Palos and encourage town residents to shop Woodbridge, dine Woodbridge, and try Woodbridge. And that's my report. Yes.
I appreciate your congratulations, as to me.
Yes.
But I was elected by virtue of the minority rule statute, not the townspeople. I just wanted to say that.
They voted for you. I don't know. Okay.
That's okay. I'm not asking for that. I'm just
making
a statement.
Thank you. I'll accept that friendly clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 on the agenda is the Ordinance Committee report. And I'll turn that over to Mika.
The Ordinance Committee met yesterday. There were 4 items that were put in front of the Ordinance Committee. First being related to our blighted ordinance. We've discussed the blight, and we had language in the blight to include unmowed grass with a particular length. We've opted to further consider some other issues that have come up, not the least of which are the logs and trees that have fallen in various storms that are being left in different areas, which could potentially be unsafe or unsightly. So we did not conclude and we did not resolve or vote on anything with regard to the blight, but we will take further consideration, and we hope by next meeting we'll have some language that we'll present and then follow the process that's from there. The next item was the solid waste and recycling. There's new language that needed to be revised to comply with state statute, or state regulations, excuse me. And so those changes were made. At the same time, with the scale being added to our transfer station, we needed to consider the fee structure that was in place. And the ordinance committee is recommending that the ordinance be revised to include an option for the Board of Selectmen to set those fees as is required, as opposed to having the fees specified within the ordinance itself. We did vote on that, and we felt that the changes that were made for both purposes in the ordinance. Additionally, the hours associated with the transfer station were also stated in the ordinance, and at the same time those would be changed so as to be able to be modified by the Board of Selectmen should that be necessary. Those are the two most significant changes. The other changes were either language changes and or changes associated with a meeting or stepping up to the state regulations. We did vote on that. We opted that we would present it, and there is an item in your package that is the draft ordinance that Jerry has put together, and that will be taken up for vote. And that is something that we have voted to present to the board for vote as to whether or not we should have a town meeting.
Public hearing. Right.
Public hearing.
You have
Thank
to
you.
schedule it.
On that. So just to finish up the report before we move to that, stormwater management, we got an update as far as from our public works manager, and we are moving forward with additional language. We have a consultant in place that is working with us on this. We will be reviewing all the language in our current ordinance with the consultant to see exactly where it is, in the hopes that we can, again, for next meeting, put forth the ordinance, the revised ordinance, and present it to the Board of Selectmen. And the last item that we discussed was the discussion with regard to the Agricultural Commission. The Ordinance Committee felt that additional information should be discussed. The State Public Act was included in the material that we reviewed, and there was some discussion as to whether or not it's a commission, a council, or a committee, and we wanted to get some clarification on that. We also had the Town of Guilford's ordinance to review for comparison purposes, and we felt we would like to review with the first selectman in Guilford and the Guilford government exactly what their experience has been since they've had the ordinance, and since they've had the agricultural committee there now about 10 to 13 years, to get some input from them and see exactly how it's progressed so that we can make a decision on that as well.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mika? Okay. Now, I think actions appropriate is to set the public hearing. Is that correct?
Okay.
So, and we normally do that at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, or is that 30 days, or how does that work?
We have to do it, what's the time?
You have to have notice in the newspaper in advance of the meeting, so you are able to do it for the June Board of
June
Selectmen.
meeting, okay, which is June 12th, I believe.
Right.
So I will make a motion that we set the public hearing for the solid waste regulations, revisions to that ordinance for June 12th at 7 p.m. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Okay. David, you good with that?
Yeah,
Did you
that's
vote?
fine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much. Item 4 on the agenda is liaison reports. Start on this side tonight. Terry?
So I will say vote for the Amity budget if you haven't had a chance. I did not get to attend their recent meeting due to work, and have no update.
Okay. Thank you. Joe?
Yes, there was a planning and zoning meeting last night. They continue to review the current regulations and make changes where appropriate. One of the changes that they made last night was to allow the percentage of coverage for residents and accessory buildings in residential A districts from 12.3% to 15%. And that was the action that they took. I hope that was coherent.
Okay. Thank you. Rika.
I attended the recreation meeting. The things are going well with recreation. Attendance is up. Participation in programs are up. One interesting note is that our rec organization is working with a state program on setting up a special needs basketball facility that they do, and I believe it's Kevin Ollie is associated with that, which I thought was kind of interesting, and they're working with them on that.
He's a UConn guy, right?
So yes, he is. That's how I know him.
Okay.
So there was some discussion there, and I'm sure I saw it on the agenda for today that we will be discussing the tennis courts at Beecher Road. The other tennis courts are very busy, and but there's a danger element associated with Beecher Road that's concerning some folks, and they want to see what we can do about moving forward with that. Smith Mowry is still plugging away with the triathlon, and they're up to 17 participants, and that is June 9th at 9 o'clock. There was discussion in terms of evaluating Saturday swim lessons, and that's being discussed. There's going to be a flyer that's sent out to families to see exactly, to basically gauge interest. It's very difficult in terms of instructors, and there wasn't significant interest, but they're going to see what they can, if there's enough interest to see something along those lines. Skating rink, I believe they were gonna reach out to you, Tony, and talk to you about that. Summer concert series, the bands have been scheduled, and Jerry, I think someone will be reaching out to you in regard to training for training associated with any people who are working with kids. And there's also they concluded and completed their behavioral agreement. It won't be implemented this summer, but it will be implemented for their programs going forward subsequent to that. That's kind of an anti-bullying statement that's a document that's passed around. And in response to the request to cut their budget, they did cut a program for midday swim with seniors for half a day so that they can save the necessary dollars that were recommended that we cut from their budget. And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should say that the EDC did not meet this past month, and I did not attend the GATV.
Okay. Thank you. Joe?
I don't have that.
Okay, thank you.
Not this month.
Okay, surprise. David?
Yeah, the Library Commission and the Human Services Commission have not met yet. They were pushed a week ahead because of the election. But I did go to the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Property, and a lot happened there. They were the first participants in the first Tuesday Library Workshop. They did a unit on invasive species to a sold-out crowd. And something here. That was yesterday, May 7th. Okay. They talked about the Fitzgerald property, and two items there. One was poison ivy and removal of the poison ivy. They didn't know how to do that. I suggested they rent some goats, which are very appropriate for doing that. And we certainly have the resources here.
What?
Goats.
Oh, goats.
Yeah, that's what they do in California. You know,
Okay.
they're way ahead of the curve.
I thought he
Ghosts.
said ghosts.
Ghosts.
too.
No, ghosts. No, I'll tell you a
fly
story
down
about
the
that.
middle of the
Okay,
night.
and
Sorry.
they talked about planting low shrubs along Center Road.
Mm-hmm.
They also talked about water quality. There was a notation last meeting to have the water tested. We got the results of the last water testing, which were done in 2016, and the lead level was acceptable. The copper level looks to me to be 5 times the recommended limit.
Where was
It
this
says
testing?
R-
Where
right here.
was it? Where were they testing?
It doesn't say. I think it was a high school,
The high school?
yeah, but it
No, it's
doesn't.
the public water supply.
Public water supply?
Oh, okay, thank you.
So, I don't know whether that's a significance, it's a very small number. They talked about the continuing review and discussion of the plan of conservation and development. They talked about developing a classification system for open space, refining legal definitions of open space, historic sites, natural and scenic resources, and recreational opportunity. They want a review of current municipally managed land and identify its future use for municipal facilities and dedicated open space. They wanted to revise the Woodbridge Open Space Plan, focused on expanding and preserving greenways and targeting parcels with valuable characteristics. They also want to close gaps in existing protections and provide for desirable recreational amenities. They talked about the Country Club of Woodbridge facilities. They want to assess how the recreational facilities, including the existing pool and clubhouse, can best be used or repurposed. They wanted to prioritize accessibility upgrades to public facilities, manage and improve the town trail system, engage residents in notification about air and water quality, and take action on energy conservation in concert with the development energy sustainability performance standards for future municipal buildings. They also are setting up a table at the summer concerts. And I think that's it. Oh, no, there's one other thing. Actually, they talked about complete streets, but I think you're going to get to that in your report. Okay? All right, and that's all the news I have.
Okay, thank you. Item 5 on our agenda is the strategic plan. We have, I met with representatives as we talked about this as a possibility of having them come and do a presentation this evening, so I met with representatives from Bloom Shapiro to discuss some ideas about how they might assist with the town with strategic planning process, similar to the material that I shared with you at a previous Board of Selectmen meeting. They're here tonight to present to the Board of Selectmen. Jeff and Lindsay, I invite you to please introduce yourselves formally and with a bit of background, and thank you for coming tonight. And I believe you have handouts for the boards, yeah. Thank you. Hey, we can shoot them around so you can go sit down.
So I will introduce myself
Thanks.
first to get things going. I know you have a very tight schedule. Thank you for having us come in this evening, and congratulations to all the new members. My name is Jeff Ziplow. I am a partner at Bloom Shapiro. In our advisory services practice. Lindsay?
Lindsay Donato. I'm a manager in Jeff's group at Bloom Shapiro.
So Lindsay and I probably spend about 80% of our time working with municipalities and school districts, predominantly in Connecticut. And the first selectman, we met with the first selectman, and we've been talking about performing a strategic plan. And what we wanted to do was Lindsay handed out a brief document that goes into a bit about the background, why do we need to do a plan, as well as some of the goals and objectives, and then we'll certainly talk about our approach. So if you turn to the background, in working with many municipalities in Connecticut, it's pretty clear that there are a number of initiatives going on. One, there's a reduction in state funding, and so in that reduction in state funding is both for municipalities and public school districts. Over the past, I would say, 5 to 8 years, we've seen some significant changes. We cannot continue to operate the way we have in the past. And in our conversation with the first selectman, we need to create a new normal. We need to create and think differently. We need to think in a more transformative way. And we're also getting some push from the governor. We've seen some discussions, significant discussions as it relates to state regionalization initiatives. We've seen it with some of the smaller school districts around, and how are there ways to bring school districts together from a regional perspective. But I think one of the things that we've been talking to all of you about is, what can we be proactive about it? Can we start looking at and creating that new normal? We have demands from residents. Residents are looking to certainly reduce taxes and spending in the overall government, but also at the same time looking to enhance and improve services. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't mine. And also looking at access to and transparency of information. We have, our electronic world is with us right now, and we should be looking at ways to enhance what we can do with information and access to information from a transparency perspective, and also give a bigger and better voice to the residents here within the municipality. In working with other municipalities, a lot of times we see departments or a lack of integration between departments because they're looking at their silos, they're looking at things vertically, when in reality we need to start talking differently. We need to be looking at it from a team approach, looking horizontally. How can we work together within and between departments to enhance services, increase productivity and efficiencies throughout the entire government? And so for us, that's some of the background that we wanted to bring to you tonight. So the goals and objectives of a strategic plan is really to take a look at and transform the legacy public service model and start looking at more of an enterprise government. What can we do differently to enhance operations, to enhance information access to residents, to enhance operations, and create, as I was mentioning earlier, the new normal. And part of that is developing strategies. Where do we want to go and how do we want to get there? And Lindsay will talk a little bit about what our approach is for performing a strategic plan. But looking at shared services, I can honestly tell you in the past probably 6 months, we've been having dialogues and conversations with municipalities throughout Connecticut who are starting to say, boy, we just can't continue doing the same thing the same way. And so we want to start looking at this whole concept of shared services, of bringing together, and I'm putting this out there on the table for discussion purposes, as an example, financial operations between the town and the school district. We do very similar things, but can we do it in a more efficient way, a more effective way, and can we create an environment where we're working together as a team? And what we've seen in other communities that have implemented shared services is that the dialogue becomes very different. It's not us versus them, it's us. How can we work together to transform, to look at things differently? So ultimately, I think part of the effort from a strategic plan perspective is to integrate and unify the various operational areas within the municipality. It's to take a look at and see what is being done, the various services and operations, and are there ways to streamline that? Can we be working better together? And then also realign the service model. Can we do things differently to enhance the services within the municipality and create that enterprise-wide vision and view for this municipality? So now the question is, what do we do and how do we look at it from a strategic planning process perspective?
Okay, so page 5 is high level, but these are the basic components of how we do a strategic plan. This is our approach. So step 1 is for us to develop a strategic framework. So what are the principles for how Woodbridge wants to operate in the future? Step 2 is that baseline assessment where we're looking at current state. And it's important for us to come in and get a really good handle on how are things operating today and just get good documentation about what current operations look like. department-wide. And we do that through a series of interviews and sort of hands-on walking through processes with different departmental staff. Step 3 is our target definition. So now we talk future state. Where do we want to be? And that allows us to do an opportunities identification, which is the gap analysis between what are we looking like today and how do we get to what we want to look like in the future, where the gaps are, where the challenges are, and so forth. That brings us into a plan development. So here's your timeline and your detailed plan for the future and sort of the roadmap for how to get there. And the components of that are in the plan implementation. Who's in charge of what? Who's the owner of each mini project? How do the projects fit together? What is the prioritization of what's getting done first, what's getting done second? And how does everything sort of fit together to, again, fit the target definition, the principles of how we want to operate, and our strategic direction for the future?
And so as part of that, things evolve, right? So the plan will evolve over time. But as you consider new initiatives, you're able to look at the strategic plan as a framework and say, how does this initiative impact, or how does it align with our overall strategic plan? And so it's really providing the municipality with a great structure to evaluate different initiatives of where you want to be and how you want to get there. And does this particular initiative meet the strategic plan types of definitions and framework that you're looking at? So with that, we certainly, if you have any questions, we'd like to answer them for you. Sir?
How close are they to what you know of Woodbridge?
So we've worked with a couple of different communities directly as a strategic plan. One would be the borough of Naugatuck, as well as the city of Danbury. So two very different, diverse types of communities. And then we've worked with a number of communities as it relates to just the overall operations, shared services. We're working with Plainville would be a great example of shared services, where there was a need to invest and look at what shared services might look like. And so we had a number of meetings with folks on the municipal side and on the school side to talk about it, to see how they could come together and work together. And in actuality, they decided they wanted to, and it's working out very well for them right now.
Question. With relation to that project, what would be the cost difference between a limited scope project like that, where you're just focusing on shared services, versus doing a much larger strategic plan?
I'd have to look at it in more detail. I don't have a cost differential off the top of my head right now. Okay. I think the strategic plan was, Lindsay, help me with this, was it 35?
35, yeah.
35, yeah. Yeah. And the shared services would be somewhat less than that, but not significantly.
Okay. So I have a follow-up to that. I presume you guys have the capability, and you might have already done it, I don't know, but I'm only seeing what we have. But you have the capability of providing us with a detailed scope of services, of what you would do detail-wise? This is a great overview, but
yeah, there's
and then attach the $35,000 to the...
Yes. So there is a detailed document and proposal that outlines scope of service in quite a bit more detail than this.
I imagine so. Do we have that?
Yes, I believe you do.
Okay. That might have been good to see, but we can get it internally if we have.
We can certainly provide it to you, but yes, there is a document that we have put together, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So outside of, general feelings of well-being between the services, how much of a change or reduction in the budget have you seen in these municipalities in which you've been involved?
I would, to be honest with you, in years 1 and 2, I would say there's going to be no change in budget. We're not coming in here and trying to tell you that this is a cost reduction or budget reduction effort.
Well, isn't that the whole point, though?
No.
No?
No. No. The strategic plan is to help rethink and realign, if you will, what we're doing, how we're going to do it, how we're going to be providing services, Part of that might be shared services component, but as I've told all the municipalities and school districts that we've worked with, that's not the reason to go to shared services initially. Over time, it will reduce the number of FTEs, but it will not reduce the number of FTEs initially. Because the reality is we need to create new processes. We need to create better efficiencies. We need to take advantage of technologies in order to create those efficiencies. That doesn't happen typically year one. The other thing too is what it does do from a shared services perspective is it creates an automatic backup plan. Right now, most municipalities and school districts are running pretty lean and mean, and so they have a person who's doing payroll. They have a person that does accounts payable. And if that person were to win, the lottery and go to Tahiti, they would be, the municipality would be in an awkward situation. By bringing together and implementing shared services, we have an automatic backup plan. Right. We're creating standards for both organizations.
So you're talking about cross-training, basically, if that's what I'm hearing correctly.
Part of it is cross-training. Yeah, part of it is creating standards and better operations.
I understand on the management point of view, but a lot of what gets done in town is hands-on. It's public works and it's parks, and these are things which have a certain level of efficiency. And what is your experience with that, if any?
I apologize.
With the hands-on work that goes on in the town, the maintenance of the town, the maintenance of the public buildings,
public works, park and rec,
all of those things which have very high cost, and
that's
anyway. I'll leave the question there.
Does the scope of their work include guidance on how better to provide those services or do that?
Well, if you're talking about efficiencies, that would be a place to look for efficiencies.
Right.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what is their experience with working with unions? How have they reacted to, or how have they received your suggestions?
We're very direct with the unions. You can't push them off to the side and ignore them. They need to be part of the conversation. Again, I think that the piece that I really want to emphasize is, particularly with the union discussion, is the goal isn't to reduce headcount, right? The goal is to create that new normal, create different approaches to enhancing services. So from a union perspective, we typically don't see a lot of pushback. It's when you walk in and say, well, we need to cut 5 FTEs.
Right. Well,
that's where you start getting into some union discussions.
Right. But to give an example of what I'm getting at in terms of union, we have a union with the police, and in the last, not the current contract, which is under negotiation, the last contract, the, what's that?
What? You can talk about the last contract.
In the last contract, the sergeants did not fill in for patrolmen who were out. So we had to pay the existing patrolmen overtime to cover people who were out sick or injured or on leave or whatever like that. And that was part of the union contract. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. So when I think about efficiencies and manpower, those are the kinds of things that I think about. And you're talking about shared services. Here's one group of people who won't cover for another group of people in the same organization.
And to be honest with you,
but that's a union issue.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So a new normal, a new way of doing business all sounds great into the future. But following up with Dr. Lober, I don't think we want a new normal that's going to not reduce our budget. Well, let me say, I don't want a new normal and a new way of doing business that's not going to reduce our budget. And I understand it's not going to happen year 1, year 2, who knows, maybe not even year 3. But that should be a component of this new normal, correct? We're not going to pay you guys $35,000 tell us how to do things differently and watch our budget grow, right?
No, the goal is not to increase your budget.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
But it certainly, I don't want to come in saying that we're going to reduce
No,
your
I
budget.
understand.
I mean,
But it
couldn't
should,
do that.
I guess, the follow-up, it should be part of this exercise, that we're looking for a new way of doing business on many different fronts,
Correct.
and to really better the way we do business and reduce our budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, there's two different things you're saying, right? A better way to do business, but
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean by reducing budget.
Right, but where you lose me and where you scare me is the converse is it might increase the budget.
No, I think,
So-
yeah, so.
I'm
our-
asking you, are we gonna pay you $35,000 to do things differently and have our budget grow?
That is not the goal.
Okay.
And
That's
to be
all.
honest with you, that is not the direction we would take.
I wouldn't think so, but
Nope, not at
I'm
all.
not asking you to guarantee a reduction either, but
Yeah.
I am asking you not to guarantee an increase.
So when we've gone into other communities to do similar types of projects, none of them had any additional FTE people to add to the budget, right?
Right.
So, that's not part of the plan or program, and quite frankly, that's not acceptable to all of you.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
I mean, I guess that's an underlying guideline and stipulation, a principle, if you will, that we don't have the luxury to add people. We have to, again, do with what we have, and maybe over time we can, reduce a few, but it's not going to happen immediately.
No, I understand, I'm with you. Yeah.
My sense is, and I don't know if you have any clients that have the longevity to be able to say, well, this is what happened in this particular case. And I recognize, and I don't blame you for being concerned about saying, we're going to save you money or anything along those lines. But at the same token, when you're using words like efficiencies and optimizations and using cross-training and things of that nature, that all speaks to doing things better, and that usually relates to with less expense overall. So my question would be, what drives communities to do this type of an analysis and have you folks come in and help them, if not at least the prospect of optimizing and therefore improving their bottom line?
Well, again, a part, and probably a significant part of this project is to create that strategic plan, which is creating a clear direction and alignment for all departments and any type of initiative. This is what we're going to be investing in. These are the types of things that we're going to be committing resources to. And so that's part of the overall strategic planning process, right? I'm going to go back to the Plainville discussion, and in talking with Plainville, and I had mentioned they just talk differently now. So a great example that we spoke to the finance director there, Rob Buton, recently, and one of the things he conveyed to us is they recognized they needed an HR person. They didn't have anyone. And although it sounds simple, they said, you know what, we might not need someone full-time by ourselves. So why don't we look at and figure out ways that we can work with the school district and combine that effort and use and take advantage of what they have, and they did. And so, again, it's creating that team, and it's creating people that can look at things differently and be resourceful and inventive to better the overall operations of the organization.
And what ultimately becomes a deliverable? Is it a report that you provide at the end that says, here's what here's what you're doing, here's what you're not doing, and or here's where you want to be?
There's the gap, yes. So there's the gap assessment, but there's also an implementation plan.
Okay.
And there's a strategic planning, vision, mission, and direction of initiatives that you need to consider on a phased, in a phased implementation way, typically over a number of years, so that you can move forward. Yet you still have to, operate the way you're operating, or you still need to produce and provide services the way you're doing it right now. So it's got to take place over a period of time.
And the amount of time from the time you start to the time.
The start and end of the project?
Yes.
Typically, this is about a 10 to probably more of a 12-week project, because we're getting close to the summertime, and getting people engaged during that time can be challenging.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Okay. Get out and enjoy the lovely weather a little bit longer. Okay. Item 6 on the agenda is request approval to create a footbridge on Russell Swamp, Bladens Brook, Eagle Scout Dominic Rendero. Good evening. Please introduce yourself to us.
Scout candidate.
That's okay.
Dominic
Come in all
Rendero.
sizes and shapes. It's all good.
Dominic Rendero is the Eagle Scout candidate. He could not attend tonight because he's the goaltender of the Amity lacrosse team, so he had another obligation,
That's important.
which we all respect.
Yep.
So I am working with Dominic on this project, and I have a slide presentation. I'm going to go through the slides very quickly because I have 5 minutes. But let me just start by saying I'm a Bethany resident. I live in Bethany, and I'm not sure if I said my name. My name is Bart Picarillo. I'm on that slide right there. I belong to the Bethany Land Trust, and I've been volunteer with that organization for over 10 years. And we identified a need for a pedestrian bridge that is kind of strategically positioned such that it supports both Woodbridge and Bethany trail systems. So that's why we're kind of involved. As a matter of fact, when I first volunteered to do this project, I didn't realize it was entirely on Woodbridge property, which is why I'm here today. So I'm here to present the idea to you folks to get some approval to go forward. It became later on, after we started doing some planning, it became an Eagle Scout project. So I'm working with Dominic, and he's finalizing his application for Eagle Scout, and he will present that next week to his troop. This project will be financed through donations, and any additional costs that aren't donated, the Bethany Land Trust will pick up. They'll be voting on that tomorrow night at our regular meeting. And the other important fact is that the project must be completed by August 31st. The reason that is because of Dominic needs to submit his final report before his 18th birthday to get approved as an Eagle Scout. So, and I want to thank Betsy for getting me on the agenda tonight. It was very short notice. So basically, this is where the bridge will go. If you see where that arrow is right in the middle, right off of Sanford Road, and you can see the Bethany between our two towns, you see the border between our two towns, Bethany and Woodbridge there. So the blue and yellow lines are trail systems on both Bethany and Woodbridge property. And this bridge is going to basically provide access to the people that park there on Sanford and want to go north to that trail system. And I have a photograph next that kind of shows what it looks like today. So as you can see from this picture, it's basically very dangerous, I think. I mean, I've been down there a few times, and this is the low tide. When we get a lot of rain, the water actually comes up pretty high in this area. So, but not much higher than where that wood is. So we saw a need for this, and we would like to install a pedestrian bridge here. There's just some other pictures. We can go ahead. This is kind of a conceptual drawing of what we're going to do. It's very preliminary. I've built one of these bridges before in Bethany on one of our properties there, and so I'm going to follow the same type of design. This is something me and Dominic have been working. The difference between the Bethany bridge, which I have a picture of, and this one's about 20, 30 feet. The Bethany bridge was only about 16 feet. So if we can go ahead, I could show you a picture of that project that we did in Bethany, and you can see it's very simple. It just allows us people to traverse over a waterway. It's not a large brook or stream, and we don't impede on any of the water at all. We're basically above the water line. The main difference between this bridge you see here and the one we're going to install is the length, and that's why we have a different design. We're going to be using telephone poles versus this dimensional lumber that you see here. So I'll try to wrap up as quickly as possible. This is a proposed budget. The telephone poles are going to be donated by Eversource. So we have them on hook. I contacted them for some used telephone poles, and they promised brand new ones cut to any length we want and delivered. So it was very nice of them. So the remaining materials are on this list and the cost. So it's only going to be, we're roughly estimating now about $1,300, which is something that our land trust in Bethany can easily absorb that cost. The next slide should show the proposed schedule that I'm working out with Dominic, that he's putting in his proposal. This is how we're going to do the work, different steps. And we have about 10 to 12 Boy Scouts that would help Dominic. He'll be running the whole operation, and with my assistance, obviously there's certain things they can't do, power tools and things like that, that the adults will take care of. And we expect after this discussion that you'll maybe direct us on, what kind of approval process we're going to need. This is on Woodbridge property. It's not on the land trust property. I have been in touch, and I have a letter from Brian Pines that he's accepted the concept, and we're going to present to the Woodbridge Land Trust later on in the month to get the okay from those folks, just like our land trust in Bethany. So if you could just go through the schedule real quick, the main thing is just that, we're going to do it in various stages, and we're going to be finishing somewhere in the middle of August. And we expect, what happened in Bethany was since it was wetlands, we had the wetlands folks come before and after. We basically brought them to the site and we showed them what we're going to do, and they made some suggestions on how to not disturb certain things. And then they came after we were done and did a final inspection and blessed it off. So I'm expecting a similar type thing here in Woodbridge. We can work with any of the folks that you require. And I think the next slide just says that. Oh, this is just the letter from Brian Pines. That we got basically supporting this, and we look forward to working with him on this also. Next slide, please. And again, at the end, we're just looking for approval to proceed, and basically any kind of direction from any other organizations that will require any kind of approval or inspection.
Thank you. Before we act on this, does anyone have any questions?
Yes.
The most obvious question is, how are you going to get those telephone poles across that span?
They weigh about 400 to 500 pounds.
They do, yes, they do.
And we're going to have about 15 guys, and we have a system where we put ropes. And the other thing is we have access to a backhoe and a front loader that people would basically provide for free. Just basically people who have this type of equipment.
Right.
So
And the other question I have.
I'm sorry, I'm a little hard of hearing.
Oh, say the other question that I have is. Does the Land Trust and Wetlands know that you're going to be using telephone poles? Because those are treated, and the chemicals will leach out into that brook when it rains.
And that's a very good question. Yes, they do. I mean, I know that our Land Trust certainly knows it, and I really haven't discussed the detail with Brian, but he would certainly be informed that we're going to be doing that, and if there's any issue with that, certainly we're not going to be laying these things in the water. And just like a telephone pole is embedded on the side of the road, it's going to be a similar type of insulation. It's going to be embedded way above the water, and I don't think it's going to be an issue. Those pressure treat chemicals have changed also. You used to embed this with arsenic, but they don't do that anymore. So they're trying to get a little bit more environmental friendly with these poles. They used to put creosol, as we all know, years ago, but so they are a little bit more. Knowledgeable, or the folks that produce these things are a little bit more environmentally conscious.
Right, because unlike telephone poles that are put on the side of the road, these are along a water course. So I raised that question.
Yeah, I mean they're all along the roads, and there's a lot of runoff on our roads in our towns, both of our towns, because we don't have extensive drainage and things like that. So there is that concern always.
So my question, I guess, is for Jerry or Tony. We got to make sure we cover liability here with 15 guys hauling these things around and building on our property. I'm all for the project, but we need to make sure that we're covered.
Did you get an insurance policy when you did the work in Bethany?
No, we did not.
Well, maybe
we have. It was on land trust property. We have a liability policy for our land trust, and this is volunteer work. Nobody's getting paid, so I think we were covered under our policy there. If anybody,
you have to check with our agent.
Okay.
Well, the Boy Scouts also have an insurance policy for activities.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. But it's limited.
And there's very specific rules on what they can and cannot do that we'll be following. I have a letter from the Boy Scouts here, but I'm kind of the mentor, so I have instructions on what I should be doing and the protections I should be taking, because safety will obviously be number one.
So it's my understanding, in addition to insurance, which we can look into, you have to go back to the land trust for the Woodbridge Land Trust
Brian did request that they actually approve it.
He said, look forward to a detailed presentation in order to gain Woodbridge Land Trust Board approval. So you'll have to do that. and I believe inland wetlands as well, the Inland Wetlands Agency. Is there anything else?
Well, I don't want to be a spoiled cat here, but an 8-24 review, we have a policy of sending anytime there's an improvement.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wear hearing aids.
The other people in the room.
Anytime there's an improvement to public property, town-owned property, the state law says that the Planning and Zoning Commission of that town needs to approve it before the work can begin. This is probably considered to be an improvement. Our building official is in the audience, so I don't want to throw it to him, but there's a very good likelihood that we'd have to just send this to Planning and Zoning for their approval. I don't anticipate any problems. Yeah, you definitely could do it tonight.
Well, yeah,
yes.
we're going to take action on this, so we could have I believe, you're a lawyer,
Right.
We could have the motion include the four things of
To send it to-
insurance,
send-
Woodbridge Land Trust, send it to Inland Wetlands Agency, and also request an 824 of Town Plan and Zoning. We will refer to all of them tonight as part of our motion.
Okay,
And then you'll get notification that you have to show up.
thank you.
So,
Okay, so-
not necessarily
Not
for
the
insurance.
824.
Not the 824, you won't have to be
You
to
don't
the
have to go
Planning
there.
and Zoning.
But inland wetlands and.
And Woodbridge Land Trust, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you looked at my schedule, I really needed, I
see.
think it was by around June 15th, which is roughly about 5 to 6
That's right.
weeks. I'm
We have
hoping
to
that
do it today.
all of this approval process.
Okay,
If the gut feel is, if there's no issues, we should be able to get the approval in that time.
sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll
If we
make that
do it.
motion to require insurance once it's researched, what the adequate insurance necessary. We will refer to the Woodbridge Land Trust, Inland Wetlands Agency, and also we will refer to Town Plan and Zoning for an 824 review.
And subject to approval from all those folks.
Right. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thanks
Thank you
for
very
coming.
much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Lisa, thank you to Diane.
Thank you. Should we do public comment yet, or keep going? We can do 7 real quick. We can do 7 and 8, they're very quick, I hope. It blew away, okay. Item 7 on our agenda, you have in your packet the history of the skating parking service on a ledgee, and we're here tonight to take the final, I hope the final action is appropriate to approve the Recreations Commission's permission to go ahead. And I believe the budget is $20,000. It has gone through, let's see, Town Plan and Zoning. It has gone through Woodbridge Land Trust. It has gone through COOPOP. And at this point, we just need a motion to approve the actual allowing recreation to go forward. So would someone like to make a motion? Any further discussion on this?
Yeah, so this pink area, I'm trying to orient myself. Is that where we talked about maybe the dog park at one point in time? It's behind that, okay.
Yep.
So it's that little cleared area that.
Yeah.
Because I thought we were talking about the rink initially over here, but, okay, I know where it is now.
Okay.
Oh, no, I remember it because we were worried about pucks flying out of there hitting cars. Yeah, now I remember that. So what are we doing about that? Man, I guess we don't have to talk about that tonight, but at some point in time.
Yeah.
It was addressed at the recreation meeting, Joe, I can tell you, and it was brought forth as a concern, so they will.
As long as they recognize.
They need to be, yeah, they will have to address that. So.
Okay, and my understanding as well is that the $20,000 hopefully will include, because this is what they have in their budget, the rebar in addition to the concrete, so.
I know there's a process that they have with their concrete to allow it to be parked. I'm not sure it's rebar, but there's some process that they, John has identified.
Cars won't go in there and
Right,
sink.
or crack.
You know, we don't want that, right, or crack our skating rink
Right.
surface. Okay,
So we're gonna, so the motion is to approve this
skating rink,
skating in that location,
yep, at the Alleged.
if we fund it, because it's not
Swear we've
funded.
done
It's
that
funded
already.
through the budget last year.
Right.
I thought
$20,000 is
I
funded.
think
I
I believe we already voted on the location. We've done,
Yeah.
we've had this discussion before. I
It's in
think
the
now
year
we're just
before.
saying,
Mr. Dye made a motion to refer the skating rink to town plan and zoning. 6, all right, that was that.
and then we got the 824 back.
Right, then Heller Dye to refer it to, this is all land trust, this is all that. But I
It's
believe
fiscal
the
year
budget
18.
was, yeah,
Yeah,
fiscal
it
year
was.
18 it
Yeah.
was approved.
Yeah, so it's already,
It's already in there.
yeah,
I think all we need to do now is say go.
yeah,
Okay,
okay,
so we have a motion and a second, correct? Okay.
Yep.
yeah,
All in favor?
all right.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And item 8 on our agenda is, you have in your packet 3 requests through the Neighborhood Assistance Act. And number 1, I will make a motion to waive the reading of the Neighborhood Assistance Act. This is it. If anyone would like to see that, we have these at Town Hall for anyone to read. So I will make a motion that we waive the reading of this. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. And then the applications I hope you've had in your packet, and I will make a motion to accept the applications and set a hearing date for June 12th at 7 p.m. on these 3 Neighborhood Assistance Act deals. One of them is the Amity Teen Center. The second one and number 3rd one is the JCC. Is that correct? Or the Jewish Federation and the JCC? Okay.
I'll just say that the previous hearing you set earlier this evening is also for June 6th, I'm sorry, June 12th at 7 p.m. So maybe this one should be 7:15, 7:30?
7:15?
You can do it all at 7 o'clock and everybody will just line up.
Just follow
Yeah,
along.
just follow
Okay.
along. It's
Okay, and we have enough time in the paper for all of this to be, this whole thing has to be published in the paper?
If it has to be, it will be.
Okay, okay. Any discussion on this?
We do this every year.
We do.
Yes.
Yep,
Boilerplate.
and we waive reading of it every year too, more importantly. Okay, so I'll call the motion. All in favor? Aye, okay, thank you. And it's now 06:07, sorry. I will convene public comment. Thank you. Everyone like to come up, state your name, and please try to keep it to 2 minutes. We have a very long agenda. Please join us. No public, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Wheel. I live at 70 Woodfield Road. I'm a registered independent, but I am thinking of being a registered unhappy camper. Congratulations, Beth, on your
Thank you.
election. I did not vote for you. Nothing personal,
It's okay.
but
We're all one town.
We're all one town,
Yep.
and it's a great town. I have 2 things in particular to stay with the 2-minute thing. Number 1, Woodfield Road is a disgrace. It may be the worst, largely used road in this town. I've been down Sperry Road, and that has some problems too, but that doesn't have the expectation of good traffic that Woodfield Road does. I don't know why there haven't been repairs done, but if there haven't been repairs, because people are saying, gee, let's not do anything until we get the development that we all think is going to happen, that's not fair. And I guess this isn't a Q&A session, but I'd like to know why Woodfield Road hasn't been attended to. My second point has to do with if there is a plan to go ahead and negotiate with some developer, I would be interested in knowing the process by which the conditions under which negotiations are taken can be set for public comment. For instance, if a basis for doing any development is increased tax revenues for the town, then that's all just a mirage unless the developer, right up front, the moment the contract is signed, guarantees payment of taxes that are the equivalent of the expectations of taxes to be gained from all building from day one, and then you've got your taxes in hand. So that's just an example of the sorts of things that I would think would be things that would be looked for in any negotiation, and I don't know what the process is for finding out how those negotiations go on or how terms are set, but I'm interested in knowing that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do notice this, that it's coming up. Phyllis Janelle, 30 Richard Street Drive. The first thing I have to say is that you should all be pleased that you're on TV a lot, because people stop me all the time and say, don't I know you? And they don't know me. They know me from here. I see that the country club is on the agenda, but really what I have to say is, if it doesn't happen, if a referendum to build on it does not occur, I would hope that this Board of Selectmen, or the next Board of Selectmen that's coming up after the election, would take a serious look at what to do with this property. This letting it hang in the balance for the last 3 years, discussing how many times it will be mowed and what they'll do with the trees and what you'll do with whatever, it's not working. And it's a beautiful piece of property, as I have been saying for God knows how many years. And I feel that we, as a town, have to stop ignoring it. If the referendum that I believe will occur at some point goes through and there's going to be housing, whatever, that's a different story. But if it fails again, then it is absolutely imperative that this Board of Selectmen do something about this property. Thank you.
Thank you. In following with what Phyllis just said, I think it would have been more appropriate to have presentations done prior to public opinion, public comment, because if I understand how the system works, we don't ask questions after a presentation is made. That's not right. I would hope that before anything is done going forward, perhaps the board, whoever is on it or will be on it, take another walk. Because one of the things that has bothered me tremendously, as I think it has other people, there's no total vision for that property. This is all piecemeal. And what's happening is the administration is willing to sell off parts and pieces to the highest bidder. We don't know where that's going. And as some of the people had said previously, once you sell it, if you sell it to David Lober, and David Lober decides not to put any houses on, that he wants to turn around and sell it to somebody else to put a different type of facility on it, we can't stop him. If I'm wrong, please tell me so. I don't think I am. We need a total vision for what the town sees happening for 153 acres of beautiful property. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Somebody come on up.
Good afternoon. Javier Vilas, 45 Ansonia Road. Congrats again, First Selectman, on your victory, your election, and to those other, the rest of you on the panel. What I would like to propose to the administration is, why hasn't a solar panel installation been, and when I say a solar panel, a reasonable solar panel, I found a document on the website the other day that really looked like a preposterous proposal. I had like every single inch of the property with a solar panel squeezed into it. I drove by, there's an installation in Derby right down the road, and they've done a fantastic job of really hiding it. You drive by it and you can't see it at all. And I don't know the finances behind it, but I've got to believe that it has to be impactful to the finance of the town. And that's really what we're all concerned about. We want to keep Woodbridge the way it is, with the wonderful schools and the wonderful open spaces, but we're realistic and we've got to pay for it. So I encourage you, if you haven't already, and you may have already have, I'm new to town, but please take a drive over to Derby and see what they've done. It's completely wooded. It's segregated from the residential area. And I'll do my own research to see what financial impact it has to the town. I'd also like, and this may be something for the contractors to answer, but I'd like to see what evidence or support there is that a market exists for a 55 and over age restricted community in a town with such a high mill rate. It's hard for me to believe that folks are wanting to downsize and pay more taxes, or even move into properties if they're already Woodbridge residents to pay the same amount of taxes in a smaller space. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I'd like to hear someone, be it the administration or perhaps one of the presenters, address that this is a viable market with a hope for a financial impact to all of us and eventually our mill rate. So thanks for the time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Adrienne Michi Smith, 17 Ansonia Road in Woodbridge, and I didn't write my notes down. I'm not very articulate without something to read off of. Everybody here knows my opinion on development of the golf course. I don't want it. I think it's a terrible idea. But the reason I'm here is because it just seems to me, and I've heard this again and again, that this property has been allowed to deteriorate without anybody looking at the big picture to figure out what the different options are to use this property in such a way that won't change the zoning, and will be really useful for the town without just constantly waiting for having developers come forward to put 55 and older communities on here. It just seems like that's all we've been doing. It's just, and then we vote on it and it goes down and nothing happens and the property deteriorates further until the next developer comes along. It's very, very discouraging. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Item 10 on the agenda is update. Is it number 10? Yes. Update on the former country club property. Unfortunately, we found out this afternoon Robert Sachs is not feeling well. He did comment that the proposal stands as it is, his proposal. He wasn't going to make any changes to what he initially presented. I will have to reschedule another meeting for...
He's not able to attend tonight.
Right, yeah. So, but we do have Brian here from Insight who can. We just found out too late, so here you come. If you would like to come up and do a presentation for us. And then we'll have to have another meeting of the full board with both developers. So this is to address the constructability review, which we tried to get done last month. So do they have it all? I have mine in my packet. Does everyone have a copy of that? And I believe Mr. Gilbertson is here. Okay, and we have, Brian has a new map.
Yes, I do have a slightly revised map.
Okay.
Yep, sure. I apologize, the copy places big clutter down today. It's a little one.
I believe also we have the principal from Criscolo Engineering, Jim Preddy, here as well. So, okay.
Hi, everybody. Brian St. Pierre, Insight Development. Again, back in front of the board, just to, from my understanding, address some of the questions and concerns that were in that feasibility study that was, conducted, and just basically show how we took in some of the information that was provided to us, and again, it's not set in concrete. Mainly had to do with the wetland and the water migration that's on the first hole, what I'll call the east side, that impacted our original proposal. As the engineers had described, there's nothing flagged. I mean, this is something that's new to me also. I just found out, when they did this study. So with that, we wanted to take into consideration moving some of the housing away from that wetland system, and just basically making everything conform to the way we see it. Other than that, again, I'm sure a lot of the questions will come up in terms of what your questions are for the feasibility study. But yes, there's still a lot to be determined. and a lot of that has to do with being awarded a project or a project even established at this point. You know, I'm not going to speak for Mr. Sachs, but, you know, I would assume that both of us are in the same boat where, you know, we just can't spend the money to get all these traffic studies and wetland studies and everything until we know that there's a project here, you know, at least a referendum set to do that. So with that, I'll open it up with questions and do my best to answer.
So your new location is pushed west?
Yeah, so we pushed it west, and it also, the map doesn't necessarily reflect it, but we're also going to push it south a little bit towards the clubhouse to get it away from Ansonia Road a little bit. I know the map is a little deceiving, but we will be pushing it south and west.
So that little pond is the pond on the first green?
On the first hole. Right in front of the first green. And then the west side is still that ridge line that goes along, I think it's 16 there, 16 and 2, you know, basically.
Right.
So keeping it hidden, you know, that's one of our main things is obviously the least impact to the neighbors that we possibly can have. My other reason for the, you know, the project being located where it is, as I've mentioned before, I think that's the least desired piece of the property. You know, if we're going to talk about, you know, town parks and using the rest of the property for town use, that to me is the least desired. Everything else kind of on, you know, I'll call Woodfield and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Johnson. That to me is the beautiful part of the property. And again, personal opinion, I think it's, you know, as a resident here, I'd rather be using that piece of property rather than where I have it proposed.
I think this looks great. I just have a couple questions. The renovated pool house, is that open to town residents, or
Yes.
it is?
It
Okay.
is. It's going to go back. I mean, the only difference is we would run it rather than the town would run it. And again, Beth and I we've had a number of conversations. If they want it, they can have it. Otherwise, you know, we'll take over the operations of it. But it'll be a smaller condensed pool house, and the pool will be open to Woodbridge residents.
And then how about the tennis courts?
The tennis courts are strictly for the residents of the 55 and older community.
Okay, and then the community house is for the community as well?
Just for the community, and
Got it.
they'll have their own small pool also.
Got it. And so this would leave us with approximately 95 acres for a park?
Yes, absolutely.
One thing that I didn't see in the constructability review, and I thought that was like the reason that we were doing it originally, and I could be mistaken, was seeing about the ledge. Am I saying it right? Like the blasting area concerns, like I think they wanted to make sure it was actually able to be built on.
Correct.
Was that identified in
Yeah,
this
so
hole?
this whole, for the most part, this project is west of all that ledge that lines that first hole that goes along Woodfield Road. So obviously it costs more money for me to blast too. So I have no interest in doing it. I don't want to do it. There will need to be test holes, borings that will need to be done. But again, you know, I don't want to call that a concrete plan because we know we're going to find things and
Sure.
you know,
Fine-tune it.
houses are going to shift. We might lose a house or two, which we're okay with. But again, you know, the answer is no. There will not be any blasting in my proposal because I just don't want to deal with it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Brian, your financing is still with the same organization, same group?
Absolutely, everybody's the same.
Anyone else?
So have we determined that shifting it west has at least remedied the concerns of the wetlands?
Yes, so from what I understand, I'll show you on the map here. From what I understand, the migration system runs from the actual pond on the first hole almost directly to the intersection that's on Ansonia Road, that three-way intersection. So it's basically a straight line that runs
through the woods.
Through the woods there, behind the houses that I have here on the east side. And again, Joe, it might move another 20 feet. You know, again, until I know exactly how wide that system is and where it's flagged, we'll adjust accordingly.
And then all the other concerns, essentially, you would have to spend significant money.
Exactly, and here's what I can tell you. There will 100% be a traffic study. I mean, we won't be able to get approvals through the town or through the state anyway. So traffic study will be done. Obviously, an engineering for the water migration and the wetland system, all will be done. And obviously, we need to get the property surveyed and so on and so forth.
David, any questions?
I have some questions.
Okay, sure.
As you all know, being in construction, land is a finite resource. We own it, you own it, okay? What's the incentive for the town in this transaction?
Yeah, again, it it goes back to the original proposal. So one is relieves the town of the debt that they currently have on the property, the roughly 4.6 or 7 million, I think it is, somewhere around there. 4.5. So it relieves them of the debt on that. There's obviously the increased tax revenue, and basically we're going to give back the town pool, and resources for town park and right. Town-owned or town-used property.
So you said the original proposal. I'm thinking back to the original proposal, and in that proposal, you also included rehabbing the clubhouse, the golf course, running those operations, rehabbing the pool, and now you're demolishing the clubhouse and rehabbing the pool only. How did that happen?
That happened because of 3 years of neglect to the clubhouse, and I had recently walked through it again. I want to say back in November now, and it is, David. I promise you, it's not savable.
I've been there.
It would cost triple the amount to try and fix it than it would be to knock it down and build something that's usable and similar. I could build the same clubhouse for cheaper than I can renovate that. And not only that, I mean, there's the oil tanks are still in the building. There's so much. I don't even know the word to I don't want to say contamination, but demo material that needs to be removed from that building that needs to happen, regardless.
So your houses are going to be in the 2,000 to 2,400 square feet, roughly.
Roughly, yep.
And selling for what?
We're thinking around 5.
Around 5 for the larger homes?
For the base model, and then obviously you can add or subtract, so on. Yeah. Baseline is 500.
Okay. Now you originally said you could build these for $90 a square foot.
Absolutely.
So you're selling them for $250 a square foot.
Basically, yep.
That's a pretty nice margin.
Well, I also need to put in roads and sewer systems and things like that. Right. So,
but correct me if I'm wrong. Your profit on this project is going to be in the multiples of tens of millions of dollars.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, Dave. But
well,
obviously, listen, I'm a businessman. Obviously.
I know you're a businessman.
I'm not in it.
We have the land, and you want it, so we're in business too. So we have to reach an agreement.
Correct.
And I liked your original proposal, except for the 100 houses. Now we have 120 houses, and all of the goodies have been taken off the table, and you're still making the same amount of money. So that bothers me. It bothers me that we're losing all of these things that initially made this an attractive proposal. And now we're left with a big housing project that I don't want, and a lot of people don't want.
I apologize. Don't
apologize. You're a business guy. I understand that. But I'm disappointed. I am disappointed.
I'm not sure we are on the same page of what the original proposal was, because the original proposal always had housing.
It always had housing. It did have housing at 100 houses.
Originally, though, I thought initially the housing was up on the ledge.
It was up on the ledge.
Yeah, which made it very attractive.
Right.
Well, more attractive to us because it was kind of set in there and it wasn't taking up a lot of the
I think we should, just because of the agenda, it's constructability study, that's pretty much, I get your opinions, and that's fine.
Well, these are more than
And you'll have another, okay, I know it's not, it's you and others, that's fine.
I have 2 more meetings to make my case.
Okay.
And you're not going to shut me up.
I'm not asking,
okay?
no, I'm just saying.
I'm just telling you.
I would never shut you up.
Okay, good, all right.
That's kind of accusatory, and I don't appreciate that.
I won't interpret it that way, and I apologize. But
I just, usually when something's on the agenda, that's what, I just want to make sure we get all our questions answered.
He's here for the questions.
And he'll be here again and again.
I mean, if you want to take a vote to, tell me not to continue, I will.
Why would I do that?
I don't know, I'm just saying, it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's continue.
Let's
Please.
continue. Okay. What is your build-out schedule and time to completion?
Again, we went through, I don't have all that paperwork in front of me. We believe it was a 3-year project, from start to
So
finish.
this is 40 houses a year?
Basically 40 houses a
Okay.
year.
And who do you envision will be buying these houses?
Not only, some residents of Woodbridge currently, but the majority of the 55 and older communities in the area, most of their owners come from out of town. So that's obviously what we would like. We would like more people coming into our town.
Okay, and I guess that's all I have. I'm gonna follow up though on some of these revenue numbers later. But thank you, I appreciate it. I'm not trying to kill you. I just want
Dave,
to
listen,
make a point.
And if I had all the paperwork in front of me,
Right.
I would go over it with you. But unfortunately, I'm just here for the feasibility, and I didn't bring all that other paperwork.
Okay.
We will have another meeting or two. Okay. Great.
That's fair enough, but so just as to the constructability, we know it's moved west and we've theoretically taken care of that water course issue, but there's no resolution to any of the other things. So essentially, we moved it west.
We moved it west, and
There's no-
the other resolution is that obviously these studies need to be
I'm not
done.
judging
You
that.
know,
I
we
just wanna
need to
know.
get that stuff done.
So you've come in and moved it west. Other than that, everything else remains as it was.
Basically, yep.
Anybody have any other questions for Brian? Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I know I'm not supposed to ask any questions. Is there any possibility of having discussions when you go through everything?
The problem is they can't hear you on television, number one. And number two, we usually don't take questions, but can you call me later and I'll be happy to answer your question.
I don't think you can answer, it's a question of that gentleman answering.
When we have a meeting with Brian and Robert, I anticipate that the public will be able to ask questions. Okay? Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, thanks for coming. Item 13 is the 11, boy, sorry, former Country Club property grounds and facility update. Is Adam here? He is here. I believe, to just refresh your memory, the board, that we had asked you to come back with a proposal for how we could do something with the grounds until a decision is made on what to do with the property. He's going to give us an update on the elements of the necessary work that has been authorized in both this year's budget and next year's budget at the Country Club, as well as options we might consider. It's important that we place this in context of all the other town-owned parcels that Adam and his fellow workers have been very busy over the last few months maintaining on behalf of the town of Woodbridge.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you.
This is kind of a, factual information for you guys. So the former Country Club grounds mowing cost. As you know, we've hayed the property in October of 18. We're in the process, so hopefully haying the property again this year for $1,000. Pretty simple. And we are mowing the sides of the walking paths approximately every 3 weeks using town staff. We haven't started that yet, but probably next week we're going to start doing that. And remember too, in 2017 we spent $1,000 haying it also, and that's haying it and removing the bales. We ran into trouble one year. We did it late and it rained and it stayed on the golf course. Looked a little unsightly, but it rotted its way into the turf eventually within 1 year. The backside is potential maintenance, tree removal, chipping of the limbs down on the ground, and mowing. As you probably heard me say before, there's approximately 37 dead trees throughout the property. 35 of them are ash trees. Now, if you want to cut those trees down and neatly stack them right where they are, it's cost the town $7,000. If you want to remove every tree, That means we have no wood drop anywhere. It's taken off the property completely. It's $35,000 and change. The branches and the trees that are on the ground is $2,200 a day to have a crew in there to start chipping all that and removing it. Approximately 2 weeks to get that done. Approximately. Again, the next one, if you want to hay the property, it costs you $1,000. Next one is if you wanted to flail mow the entire property. That's basically every inch of the entire property is $4,600. Now that's not mowing; it's a shaft with these metal blades on it that just beat everything down. It gets it down to about 6 inches to the ground.
Just out of curiosity,
Yep.
why that versus mowing? Is there a particular reason? Is the growth such that that's what you need to do? Let's see.
Haying will get it down to about an inch. Flail mowing is, well, the hay guy I can't find anybody that'll do that multiple times. They're busy, on their farm. It's very difficult to get them in there. Flail mowing is, they can get into more precarious positions around the greens and almost do the entire property under trees where the hay machine, the apparatus, they can only do in the middle of the fairways. They can't get near the trees, especially now, considering all the limbs and branches that are everywhere, strewn throughout the entire course. So, and keep in mind, we only hayed approximately half of the golf course, always, because the other half we wanted to leave for the environment, for animals to flourish. So that was only a portion of the golf course, only the fairways.
But the numbers you have here are for the entire golf course. The numbers you have here are for the entire golf course.
$4,600, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Now, if you want to mow the golf course like we mow out here on the fields, you're going to need 2 helpers. You're going to need a brand new mower because we don't have that. And that mower is not cheap. And also, you're going to have to flail mow it before you mow it because now it's a foot high. So those prices come in.
Is there an in-between option of hiring a landscaper to do that type of mowing?
You probably
That's
maybe
more than the 46
hire a
less than the
landscaper to
50?
come in and mow the entire property.
Right.
I haven't looked into that, or
just curious.
No, I haven't looked into that. I have to, if someone's capable of doing all that, for one thing. There are probably people out there, and they would probably own that mower that I'm proposing. Matter of fact, I think the gentleman who cuts Amity High School has that mower. We could check into that, have him mow it. But you gotta mow it continuously.
There's a lot of has to be done before we talk about mowing.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
But I'm just saying,
You
these
can't
are.
just go out and mow. So if we took this in stages, we could do some of this that costs a little less
Sure.
money, groom it up a little bit.
You could definitely
and
flail mow the property.
And then do it, and then see where we go from there.
Well, the flail mower is a good way to do it because it can go over branches, not big branches, but it can, go over them.
Right.
With a mower, you can't do that.
And how low does the flail mower?
6 inches.
Okay.
It's meant to basically knock down heavy brush, basically, not turf. So it won't look really neat, you know what I mean?
Well, look a heck of a lot better than it does
It'll
now.
definitely, but you can go everywhere. Under trees, you go over, the tees that were there, around the greens that were there.
If you hayed first.
Yep.
And I take it who's ever haying is taking the hay.
Yes.
Because that's why it's only 1,000. And then you flail mowed after that?
Sure.
Okay. And that would take it down kind of to 6 inches or something? Won't look like a golf course, but it'll look a lot better.
It'll look much neater, that's for
Right.
sure. And you could do that.
And then from there, we could talk about if we ever need to get into mowing and all that.
Yeah, definitely. Sure.
So Adam, you're saying that mowing the entire property with turf mowers would cost $50,000? Is that one cut?
No, that's the entire season.
The entire season?
And how often would you do
You gotta cut it when you're done with the, you
just
start on the
keep
first
going?
hole, let's say, and you get done on the 18th, you gotta start all over again.
All right.
Yeah.
We need a larger mower to do that?
Sure.
Didn't we have a larger mower to do that?
We do, it's 10 feet wide, but it's being used.
Well, didn't we have a whole bunch of mowers at the club? that
We
you
did,
guys
we have a
sold at auction?
60-inch Jacobson mower, which, that's the second employee would get in between the trees.
I'm saying, didn't we have a whole bunch of those mowers that were auctioned off for pennies on the dollar?
Well, those mowers,
ago?
personally, Billy Casper was asking for replacement of those mowers, because basically they were shot. They were done. That's why I didn't even want them. You know, you just purchasing or taking a headache. That's why they went so cheap.
And we can't let people in town come and cut down those felled trees.
That's not my decision.
I know it's not, but we have been doing that. I mean, we have been doing that for years on the other town properties, you know, on the trails. And he said that it was an insurance issue.
We stopped doing that years ago.
Well, let me talk to my insurance guy over here. What would it take to have an insurance policy to allow people to do that? So we could turn liability into an asset. How much would it cost? Would it cost as much as...
I can't answer that question, because we'd have to have a scope and how many people and, you know. Is it a big project where we get a whole bunch of people and do it, or is it over time? There's a lot into that.
$35,000 for removing dead trees.
Well, if you want the wood removed.
If you want the wood removed.
It's only $7,000 to knock 37. That's pretty cheap to knock 37.
Cut them down. $90 a tree just to cut them, stack them neatly. Yeah. Don't rake up the debris. Yeah. Just leave it in place right where it's at.
Cutting down the trees is very hazardous. You know, cutting the fallen wood. I mean, people do that all the time. People who heat with wood do that all the time.
Statistically, it's the most dangerous job in the world.
What's that?
Statistically, it's the most dangerous job in the world.
I'm not going to disagree with it. Well, maybe crab fishing is. But the point is, we had allowed this, and it was fine. And
I'm just stating a fact.
Well, I mean, you make a statement, I have to counter it, right?
No,
so the point is, we should look at that and see what it'll cost.
That's fine.
And see if that's something that we want to pursue, as opposed to saying, well, we'll just give us all this money, or it's too much money, and we're not going to give it. It's going to leave it like that.
Hopefully nobody's saying that.
What's that?
Certainly, I don't think anybody's saying that we're just, okay, here we
gonna
go
leave
with
it.
the money.
No,
and certainly I think and I'll speak for myself, but I think we're open to just about anything in terms of doing it.
I think we need to explore all options.
Couldn't agree with you more,
Dave. We can't do it because of this. We can't do it because of that.
Totally agree. We've got to talk to the right people, understand exactly what we can or can't do.
Right, I think we all agree with that. So the question is, let's identify it, and you've identified one. Could we deal with these trees?
The second thing is, the guy at
We've also identified can we get a
Homewood
contractor for the grass, for mowing, as opposed to doing it doing it ourselves.
Right. Okay. Mike Baldwin over at Homewood Acres mows his property, it's 130 some odd acres, every day. Takes him one day to rough mow the whole thing. Talk to him, see if he wants to work. You know, I'm sure he would. Those people are working on a shoestring. I'm sure they would like some more income. Maybe you could contract with him and do it cheaper.
It's possible.
I mean, he's going to work cheaper than your guys. I mean, your guys are union and they get benefits and all that kind of stuff.
These are seasonal employees.
What's that?
These are seasonal employees.
Seasonal? Yeah, well, they just got a raise, so anyway. But I would talk to him, you know, and see if he can provide any kind of service for that. I don't know. This is a big number.
Well, this.
No, not yet. We have
It's a big number.
Spending, funding
But you have
request
to do
in the
some of
budget
it.
if we decide to do that, or depends on. But this is informational purposes only at this point.
That's all it is.
Okay.
And keep in mind, we'll continue haying it, and that's just a portion, like you said. It's only the
Right.
fairways.
Right.
It's a very small amount, but it's somewhat making it look a little nicer.
Okay.
But we could hay it, and then for $4,600, flail mow the whole place.
Sure.
Right, so that's not, I mean, it's money, but it's not.
It's cheap.
Big money.
It's not huge money, no.
So that would be.
Money to make it look.
That would be $5,600, right? 5,600-ish? Okay.
To hay it
And that doesn't include the felling, then we add the felling of the trees if we want to take down the dead trees so they don't hurt anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, $7,000, okay.
$7,000.
Well, this is something to consider for funding.
And that's the way I look at it. This is information that we need in order to make a bigger decision.
Right.
But, I mean, it is a very much bigger decision. From my perspective, this is great for maintenance, and that's what we seem to be, but it's got to be a part of the bigger discussion in terms of what are we going to do with the country club? How are we going to really make it something? Because there's more. There's the cart paths, and there's other things. So this is one element of it, and I think just whatever idea is going to save us some money to do one element, great. But we gotta think of the whole, it's gotta be more than just mowing it a couple of times a year.
Thank you.
I mean, you could flail mow it 4 times a year if you want to, you know?
Thank you, this is.
So I
this is-
understand, the
yeah, it
4,600 is how many flail mowings once?
One, the whole time.
One, the whole 155, okay. Okay. Okay.
It would, as Dave, you know, along the lines of what I said and what David said, if you're able to get us any additional information as relates to other resources.
Sure.
You know, beyond what we have with the town, if there's even an opportunity for that way we know, yes or no, that it can be done or it can't be done, and here's why.
The only thing is, I don't disagree with that. The only, well, to me, an urgency is, if you're gonna hay it, you gotta get it hayed in the next couple of months, right?
Agreed.
That's what you just told us.
Agreed.
Right? So that should be something we decide on real quick. Do we want to, as a first instance, hay it, which will make at least the fairways look a lot better. Then, for $4,600 more, 56 total, we could flail mow the whole thing. We could decide on that right now, and at least it would be tightened up a little bit.
It would definitely look.
From there, if we didn't look like what it looked like, we could go further.
It would definitely be a big
But we should
change.
do, for 5,600, I don't see why we wouldn't just vote on doing that right now.
We got any farmers in the audience here?
We have money, and I think one of the funding
How about
requests is-
sheep? Would they do the job under the trees?
don't.
They work
Okay.
cheap.
I'm more than willing to help, and I also have the name of somebody who would do a day's worth of work, instead of $2,200 to just 14, because I had him 2 weeks ago.
Okay, thanks.
That's it?
But, well,
Any more questions?
Would you like to do something this evening? At least what Joe proposed. Would have to add it to the agenda because we don't even have a funding request.
You have money in the budget, there's $4,000 left in the budget.
and
For this year.
Alan, so it's hayed, and then like within a couple of days you do these.
And there's $5,000 in next year's budget. So,
We have a total of 9?
Well, we're gonna go through the
between
funding
June and July, you have
requests,
$9,000.
right?
Pardon?
We have a lot more money because we haven't funded those funding
That's right,
requests.
that's right.
True.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, if we, let's say we assume we funded all those, does that bring our contingency down to 0?
No,
So we have some contingency funds as well, even if we fund all those, right?
even if you fund all those, your contingency fund will be, I've got it here in a little chart. This is $72,000. And there's actually, there's an ad there for the rest of the strategic plan. If you take that out, it's
I saw
$100,000.
that. Okay, so
yeah.
we have
you
money to spend $5,600.
You do.
To hay and
Flail, yeah.
If you,
Plenty of money for that.
you do, yes.
So, I'm of the opinion if we don't put it on the, vote to put it on the agenda, then we wait till June, and who knows what happens then, and we're too late to hay.
So
And
just,
if we don't hay, it's tougher to flail mow too, right?
No,
No, so we could flail mow the whole thing.
anytime.
And and we don't need to hay. Well, then what would be the advantage to haying now versus just flail mow?
Nothing at all.
Well, then let's just flail mow and spend $4,600.
You'd be helping a farmer, that's what you'd be doing.
well, so I just have a question.
I don't want to do that, but.
Just out of curiosity, I'm sorry, Beth.
I was just gonna ask about trees. If we choose to take down, I'm worried about these dead trees hurting someone.
It's dangerous, yeah.
I was gonna
Okay,
ask
so
you-
4,600 for flail mowing.
Yep.
And is it-
7,000 for the
right.
trees.
Okay, right.
Down.
Correct.
That's
Just
$90
felling
a
them.
tree, that's cheap.
So in terms of,
real
is it
cheap.
smarter to take the trees down first? Just, how it works. Trees first, then flail, or the other way around?
No, you could do it either or, it doesn't
Either
matter.
way, okay.
So the trees are not in the way, they're not.
Not
in the
really.
fairway,
Yeah.
They're not on
Most
the
of them are
That was-
congested in one area, they're spotty in areas. And then on the
Okay.
perimeter of the golf course, there's a
Okay.
few that's out of the way.
So, should we do this under now? Or should we make a motion if you, what's the idea of the
necessary to
board?
make, I'm sorry, what's necessary to make it as usable as possible for residents?
Cut the
Make
trees
it-
down.
Okay.
That's dangerous, yeah. I mean, I'm scared. I didn't want to stand, you're talking
Yeah,
somebody
I'm-
next to me, you're like, oh
Bef-
boy,
I'm afraid that they're
So
gonna,
widowmakers
we have
up
a
there,
big
you know?
wind, They're
Yeah,
dead.
oh, yeah, sure.
The problem with those dead trees is that large branches fall off with
Oh,
absolutely no warning.
Definitely.
And that's why they're called widowmakers.
Where the trees just come down in a big wind,
They're doing it
it's
right.
bad,
So
they're
for
dead.
7,000, they come down and they get stacked neatly in place.
Yep, they drive with a small rubber excavator.
So for
Around the golf course.
$11,600, we take care of mowing the whole place and
And
get
flailing.
The
Flailing
limbs,
and-
the limbs can wait. I mean, if you don't want to do that, you can just mow around them.
Right. Well, that's the chipping and all that.
Yeah, 'cause there's-
We can look to find a more cost-effective way
I don't
to
think
do
you're going
that.
to find someone more effective than that.
Okay.
Well,
But
maybe
yeah,
not.
it'd be a little.
Maybe not.
I mean, maybe a little.
But in any case, we should do the 11,000.
So it seems like we need $11,600 to
Yep.
do flailing and tree
So when we get
tree
the funding
removal.
request, you can.
Okay, we can add
Forget-
that.
forget
Don't
about
let
the
me
hay.
forget. Okay.
Forget about the hang, just flail mow the whole.
Flail
Right.
mow for 4,600 and 7,000 to remove the dead trees.
Right.
Take them down, take them down.
Take them down and just stack them.
Safety, okay.
Just get them down.
We can't do the haying now, can we? Have to wait for it to grow up.
Yeah, it's only a foot high.
Yeah, but we don't need to hay.
We don't need to
So
hay.
we're gonna flail mow. I learned something new tonight. Flail mowing.
But if you have
Okay.
somebody
I like that.
cut the hay and pick it up, then they have an advantage doing that.
The only advantage to doing that is that he gets the hay as a
Well,
farmer.
that's what I mean. He
That's-
gets the hay
We
and
pay him 1,000 and he gets that.
Yeah.
he gets the hay.
We just it never came, we thought, we actually hayed the entire property
Right.
first.
But the
initially.
advantage is that we don't have the hay lying down on the fields.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Get it out of there.
the flail mower will chew it up so it's not windrowed and looks unsightly like the hay the farmer would do.
Mulches it up.
Yeah, it does. So,
Tops it up.
And that
But it'll-
won't affect the grass, that won't
no,
show up.
no whatsoever at all. But you'll get all over the banks and hills and around the trees and, it'll look much neater immediately.
Mhm.
It'll just take a little bit of time and
Yep.
do the whole property. We did a portion of it, Public Works, but I mean, it's just we just didn't have the time. We started around the clubhouse and spent like 3 hours.
It's a big property to mow. You need a crew and you need the proper equipment.
Sure.
Which
Just
we
keep
no
in
longer
mind, the
have.
fairways, just the fairways alone are 25 acres, just the fairways when we play golf there. So they add
Okay.
the rough to it and then those.
So I think we're in consensus about adding this to,
Well, I don't know what we have to add. We have to add it on the
adding
funding
it
side.
to an action
But we
item.
can vote, no, it's on here, action as appropriate.
Yeah, it does say that.
So we can vote to do those things and then we fund them.
It was Tony's suggestion, we put it under funding
The funding
requests.
The funding part.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But we can vote on taking
Absolutely.
the action now.
So would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we, per Adam's report, I just need to find it, we would agree to felling of 37 dead trees, leaving debris in place but neatly stacked for $7,000. And we will flail mow the entire property for $4,600, total of $11,600.
What will your timing be on? I'm sorry, you can discuss that in a minute.
The flail mowing?
Why don't we have a second and
I'll do a second.
Yeah, that's what he said, wait.
any discussion? Go ahead.
Just in terms of timing, when would you look to do that?
Probably June, my recommendation. I mean, if you do it now, then
It's gonna grow back.
it's gonna grow immediately.
Could you take the trees down now?
Yeah,
I'm worried about
yeah,
safety.
Trees can go.
Yeah,
Trees
okay.
immediately.
I mean, that's because June is 2 weeks away.
Yeah, if you
Just worried
flail
about the
mow
weather.
now, it'll grow
Yeah,
instantly.
okay.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah,
On
you'd
an
be like, what?
operational basis, you guys can figure out that.
Thank you.
Okay.
So that's
Any
the
other
motion.
Nice
discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Adam.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Adam.
Have a good night, everybody.
Oh, thank you, you too. Item B on the agenda is facility closure, action is appropriate. Tony, you want to take this?
So just as, by way of background, because it happened at the Board of Finance in the budget, the Board of Finance removed all of the utilities from the country club budget. And so left just the grounds maintenance, which is a $5,000 budget. So as a result, after speaking with the fire marshal, the appropriate thing to do would then be to close the facility, assuming there are no utilities going to the building, there's no electricity, there's no water, there's no heat. We would have to prepare the building in terms of getting the water out of the pipes and then once the utilities are shut, we'd have to secure the building to trespass and take out a vacant property policy on the facility.
Right. And we had a price for that.
That was about 13, 14,000. The utilities are about 60 anymore.
Right.
So that's the difference.
47.
Yeah, it's like a little under $50,000. So that's where it currently stands. But I'm not sure what else there's to do at this point. It is in next year's budget. So
we would have to take a motion to
the
close the facility.
After speaking with there is an issue with the pumps up on Fountain Street, which we would have to repair if
we didn't do this. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, to get the discussion started, I'll make a motion that we close the facility. And what else do you need in that motion to secure it? Board it up?
Yeah.
Do all things appropriate for
We have to work
insurance
with the fire marshal and the building inspector, and we would all work together to make sure that it's done properly.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. And now we can have discussion on this. Anybody?
So are we suggesting that we use the difference, take it out of contingency?
No, it was already taken out of the budget. So
I know the expenses were taken out.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, you're saying, what was it, 46 or 47?
So I added, the budget was changed to add the money to the insurance budget for the vacant property policy and remove the utilities from the country club. That's already been done. It's not a money issue. This is more of a.
So the net in the budget right now is about $13,000 or $14,000 for this facility for next year. In other words, take away.
We've already budgeted for what we're going to approve. Is
Correct.
That what you're saying?
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what action is required, but
well, that's what I'm saying.
It's more sort of an FYI, and I guess if you feel strongly about it, you can fund it in July. I mean, I guess
that would require action.
That requires action.
Yeah, I don't know. Ask Jerry, but it seems like it's already in the budget.
Yeah.
For what we're planning.
You weren't part of that discussion. I thought you at least should know that that's what happened.
That's good.
Yeah.
And the Board of Finance did it.
Yeah.
I guess, right. I guess we could always decide to do something.
You could somehow reverse it, I suppose, but you'd have to fund it. Yeah. Short of that, we'll proceed along that path, and
so no votes required.
Well, we didn't vote on that.
No, we have a vote. We have an action and a second to close the facility with all appropriate fire marshal and insurance in place, and all the other people that we need to assist in doing that, making it secure.
Financially,
it's already
it saved almost $50,000 in next year's budget.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's the 50,000.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So I will call the question unless there's any further discussion.
Yeah, there's further discussion.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Okay. All right.
Didn't
So
hear from you yet, sorry.
you're proposing shutting down this building. Okay, so you're going to have no utilities, which means you're going to have no water. So you're going to have no sprinkling system. You're going to have no electricity for a water pump. You're going to have no telephone lines for a smoke alarm, a fire alarm, or an intrusion alarm.
Correct.
Okay, we've already had vandalism on that property. We've had teenagers there riding their dirt bikes. This is a recipe for arson. I mean, if I was an insurance company, I wouldn't touch this place.
Well, we've already got.
You already got someone to do that? Okay.
And the objective of whatever, and we're speaking with the fire marshal primarily.
Yeah.
The main objective is to secure the building from trespass, whatever that requires.
Yeah.
Start at the least restrictive way, and then if it's not working, get more restrictive. I mean, you've seen, how that works in other buildings.
Do you recall what we have that insured for? What the building limit is on that vacant property?
Oh boy,
I know it's a tough question.
I don't know off the top of my head.
But
no.
We should probably know.
I know that they have routinely visited our properties and they assess them periodically.
We probably have a blanket policy,
we do.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is better.
So the values are just to, give an idea
right,
of
but
what the
if
loss
it's
is.
blanket, if we have a big loss, we have plenty of money there.
Correct.
To pay for.
It's a
unless we have 2 or 3 in the same year.
It's to replace what was lost. It's not restricted to
replacement cost.
Right, replacement cost.
But
right.
it's on a blanket basis.
Right,
which
right.
is better.
Right.
So
5,000 that was put in the next year's budget, is that specific to a particular
For grounds
function?
maintenance.
Just for ground maintenance?
That's all it's for, whatever to be determined.
Not for alarms or anything along those lines?
No, just 5,000 for grounds maintenance.
All right, so if there's a fire at this building, which has asbestos covering all of its heating components, this will result in a massive cleanup and a huge cost for hazardous waste mitigation.
That's it?
No, additionally, it'll continue to deteriorate. No, that's not it.
Well,
Wait, no, there's more. We have at least 3 established catering companies who are looking for additional venues. The right contract could entice them to lease the building, rehab it with in-house construction at cost less than retail, and save the town approximately $600,000 to $800,000 in real cost in demolishing that building. Even if we leased it for $1 a year, we would be saving money and preserving a resource. So I think shutting off the utilities is short-sighted, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I would maybe tend to agree if those people come forward.
I can get them to come
forward. The other contingency along those lines is also, I'd sure like the fire marshal to say, or whoever's qualified to say that the building is still in a position to house that type of a facility and or business.
Well, they're gonna have to do multi-million dollars worth of renovation.
Understood.
And at the same time, you still have the environmental issue, because they can't build around asbestos.
They can't renovate.
It's
It's
gotta
gotta be brought up to code.
It's gotta be brought up to code.
Well, I don't know about that. If you don't disturb the asbestos.
Yeah, but you can't renovate that building without
Without removing all that asbestos. I
So-
still think it's worth a look.
But I don't disagree with you, but if they come forward quickly, 2 to 3 months under boarding
We
is
have,
not gonna.
can you read, is there a motion?
Yeah.
Do we do, okay, could you read that back to me, because we could amend it to say, give it maybe 15 days to find out if these people could come forward. Give us a proposal,
Okay.
Would that be reasonable?
Sure, but
3 of
as I
them?
said, you could
You
board it
have-
up tomorrow. If they come in a month, it's not gonna be.
But I'd like to see, we should see the proposals, do you agree?
Yeah,
I've never seen it. You have 3 of them?
Of course we should.
3 of them? Okay.
3 caterers, yeah.
Okay.
It's great.
Ask them to come forward quickly. Okay, so we'll get 15 days, does that sound reasonable to amend my friendly amendment?
How much time do you
From a
want?
practical sense, we'll probably just need a few days to blow out the lines and stuff, and then shut the utilities. It's not, nothing's gonna happen really for a while. I just.
What would the time frame be for shutting off the utilities? When are you?
July 1.
July 1.
Yeah.
So we have a month and a half. Yeah, I think we have enough time.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
Nothing's gonna happen. There's no freezing.
Right.
Right.
Right. And the idea is to blow the pipes out so it doesn't freeze.
Right.
So what makes everyone happy in terms of the time frame for these 3 developments?
I'd be willing to wait.
How about by the July meeting? They
By
either
July
come,
1,
they either
well-
come to June or July meeting.
Okay.
Or we
Well,
move
really
forward.
June,
No, they have to
because
come to the June meeting. If
because
we're gonna
July 1
They
is,
just-
the July
July
meeting
1.
is after.
Just said even if it's 2
10
weeks without
days,
power,
what's
it's
the
still
big
not.
deal?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
July
All
10th,
right,
what's
fine.
the- yeah.
Okay,
It's a
I'm
month
okay with
of
I'll
that.
give them 2 chances to
Okay.
come, and if they don't come,
Okay,
they don't come.
okay, we'll make that friendly amendment to our motion in second.
So is your friendly amendment to put a date that you would do the motion? Okay, and that date is?
July 10th.
July
right.
meeting, whatever that
I think our meeting's July 12th.
What?
I think our meeting's
is. It might be, whatever the July meeting is.
Yeah, I think it's Wednesday, July 12th.
July Board of Selectmen meeting, how does that
I'm
sound?
sorry, June
Whatever date
12th.
June 12th.
I'm
That's
thinking
the
of
day after
June,
the
my
July.
bad.
It's June
my bad.
12th, and I don't know the July, but whatever
I
the
won't be
July
here
Board of
July 1.
Selectmen meeting is.
Maybe I'll come for the public
Okay.
comment.
Is there any further discussion?
You need a second?
David, are you all done with everything?
I'm all done.
Okay, I just want to
I'm
make
all
sure.
done with this. No,
Okay.
I have more, but this
No,
on
I
different,
meant on
different
this, I got
stuff.
that
I
one.
think Joe seconded it.
Okay.
I thought it was a
The
second.
second
It
on the
was a
friendly
second.
amendment?
Someone did, I did, somebody
You
did.
Okay.
seconded it.
Okay.
All right. I'll call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, there's some equipment
So
in,
somewhat related.
yep,
We have had a number of inquiries about the pool equipment, about buying the pool chairs through recreation and through us directly. And there's a number of other, a lot of other furniture and items in the facility. Well, you know a little better than I do, but.
Yeah, Brad Parsons did a really nice, very thorough inventory for me. There are furnitures, coat racks, lots of kitchen equipment that,
May or may not work.
right, that we don't, it's currently not working. We don't know if it's broken or if it just needs a minor tune-up.
Right.
But, you know, even down to glassware and silverware and lighting fixtures and a pool, I mean, it's a very long list of all the things that are not being used right now. And so if the building is going to be closed down,
Should think about what we're
makes
gonna do
sense
with
to
that
auction
equipment.
the equipment off.
Well, given the fact that we have a possible three catering people coming, is it kitchen equipment? Maybe we could hold off on those, it would be
We'll
okay?
hold off.
That's tired.
I don't
Kitchen
know.
equipment.
Kitchen equipment.
It's
But we
tired.
could hold off. But do we have any process we have to, are there any restraints on how we can sell that equipment if and when we want to?
No, but what we've done in the past is through an auction process.
So we do an auction?
Yeah, we did it, last time we sold the golf equipment, we did an auction with two other towns,
Orange
Orange and
Bethany,
Bethany.
yeah.
That's typically not done until October. And so, and there's a lot of equipment here. Usually we brought the equipment to Orange and it wasn't that much equipment. But there's a lot of stuff there, so we probably have the auction at.
We just have our own.
At the facility, yeah.
But if Woodbridge Rec is
Before
a
we shut the
town
power off.
department and they have interest and could use,
We were talking, yeah,
like some of the
that's
pool
one of the,
equipment?
it came through the one of the requests came through the rec department, that's who they called.
Yeah.
Came
So they
through
called
rec,
us and I
rec's
said.
not interested in it.
I
Oh,
don't
Rec
know.
doesn't want them?
I don't know,
Oh,
I don't know if the rec wants to sell it, I don't know if the board wants to sell it, and
No, but I think Terry was saying if rec wants some of this stuff.
they could,
Right.
obviously, we would offer stuff to town departments before we did.
Okay.
Internally.
We've done that, we did that already with the facility, and some of the departments took some of the chairs, and so if the department has a need for some of the equipment, they could absolutely take it.
Okay.
I know there's a pool table there that John wants to use.
Pool table?
Yeah.
Oh, fun. Okay.
So if one of these proposals goes through,
What
one of
proposals?
these development proposals goes through,
Are you
and
talking
they.
about development?
No, he's talking about the
Saks.
caterers.
Catering.
Oh, no,
you're
I'm talking about
Oh,
Saks, and
okay.
I'm talking about
Okay.
St. Pierre.
Saks.
If they redo the pool, are we gonna have to purchase new equipment that we just auctioned off? I mean, are you talking about getting rid of chairs and all that stuff?
You can negotiate with whoever the developer is if it gets to that point to supply pool equipment. That's something that I think that is the least of the problems in terms of their expenses. And they've agreed to, both have agreed to redo the pool, fix it, improve it, and build a little clubhouse. The negotiations could also include supplying appropriate equipment for the town.
What's the condition of some of these things?
Some are in good condition, some are not.
Is there any reason for us to move on this right now? for
No,
considering
no,
those things?
no.
Why don't we just
None at
hold
all.
it until?
That's why I was
because-
suggesting, why don't we
Right,
wait and
and
see
plus
what happens with the caterers
We
for
just want you to be aware of
sure.
it, it's yet another issue.
It
you
might
have
be
to
kitchen
consider.
equipment that if a
Fair
caterer comes forward, can be used. Okay,
So we'll put this on the July.
July.
Okay.
Right, okay, thank you. Item 12, Administrative Officer Director of Finance Report. Thank you, Tony.
Okay.
A few items on here.
This is a report through April, and we have a budgetary increase of slightly over $500,000. That's a projected increase to our fund balance of just over $100,000. So that leaves us just under $6 million, or 11.77%. Interest income continues to do well, and there's a surplus there of $180,000. Intergovernmental revenue is a surplus of $177,000. Charge for services has a deficit of about $115,000, most of which is from the closure of the outdoor pool, which was $83,000. Other revenues, I know we've discussed this in the past, but the surplus there is $368,000, and the town received just under $1 million from Amity, and you can see it's outlined sort of some of the uses of that surplus. $220,000 was put in the budget for next year, and $85,000 was already transferred for the Beecher HVAC project, and finally there's an estimate of $300,000 to offset capital expenditures in next year's budget, which you've seen some of in this transfer request for this month. That was done by the Board of Finance. So that drops that to 376. There are expenditures. There's surplus in finance. We've discussed that in the past. It's $40,000 from the elimination of position. The library also has a surplus of about $45,000. Right, and it had some other staffing issues where there was some transition in staffing, or some folks had left and they reorganized a little. So the library's done a good job of being more efficient and saving some money. The transfer station looks like it'll be a deficit of about $25,000 for the recycling issue that we currently face. Benefits is a $35,000 savings, primarily due to position eliminations and timing of benefits. Debt service is a small surplus of $5,800, and the Woodbridge Board of Education is reporting a deficit of $300,000 at the end of the year. I know Bob mentioned 302, I think he said. But when I spoke with the business manager, he said that $300,000 is a good number for us to use. So there's a $250,000 is from the general fund, and $50,000 would be a special education reserve that was set up last year.
Anybody have any questions on this for Tony? David? Okay. Thanks. No, I because you come in late. I just don't want to. Okay.
Right.
Surplus.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Tax refunds? There aren't any, right?
Do we get any tax refunds? No.
Okay.
No.
There are no tax refunds this month. Item C, funding requests.
Sure. At the end of the year, what happens is the dollars, the $109,000 goes into fund balance, and so you would have to use, fund balance if you want to use it. That's the process, which you can do.
Okay. Funding request. First funding request. Oh boy. 1819-31 in the amount of $25,000. This is for the. Did I miss one already? This is the order I have them in. I'm sorry. I apologize if I skipped one. It's the first one I have in my packet.
First one is
1819-31 in the amount of $25,000.
That's not right. It's 21.
It's 21.
21. Okay. Yep. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
But I think she has them in a different order.
Yeah, just flip
Yeah, those are the ones from today. There was a whole bunch in the package.
Again, Jerry Shaw wasn't
You want to take this?
Sure.
I'm going to have Tony read them off because my voice is going A and B. I'm mixed up here. Okay.
No problem.
And there's a revised schedule that shows the balance of the contingency fund as we discussed earlier.
Just gonna get some water.
Okay. The first is 1819-21, which has actually been revised to $14,500. And I spoke with the fire chief today, and this was due to the replacement of an air compressor that uses the fire department uses for the air brakes at the fire apparatus in the firehouse, and it helps the trucks to be ready for emergency calls, and its compressor has failed, and so the chief would like to replace that. The Board of Finance has already approved it on their April 22nd meeting, subject to your approval, because of the emergency nature of the item.
I'll make a motion to approve funding request number 1819-21, not to exceed 16, which is actually
14,500, right? Correct, yep.
I just did that to get discussion going, so.
Is there any
My
discussion?
only question is, so this piece of equipment has failed.
Correct.
And we don't have another one.
No.
So it's an essential part of
It is an essential.
them providing the services we require.
Correct. To have the trucks ready
they
for.
can't stop. not a good situation.
Okay.
All right.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
All in favor? Do we have a motion? Okay, thank you. Okay. Which one is next?
1819-22.
$12,735,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion, we approve funding request number 1819-22 in the amount of $12,735.
The items are
Second?
second, replacement of firearms, Wi-Fi modems, and taser and holster. There's an attached memo from Police Chief Capiello.
These are items that were removed in FY20 budget by the Board of Finance with the intention of using existing funds in the current year, or surplus funds in the current year.
And it's coming.
We actually have quite a few of those.
Correct. There's.
So my
you're
question
right.
is, has that been a historical process that
It has.
we've used?
Yeah.
And why is that preferable to just ending up the year with money and then keeping each budget year? Because they cut it out of the last of the 20 budget.
Correct.
Which makes it look like they cut money out of the budget, but we're still spending the money.
Right.
So
And how is it determined what we use it for and what we don't? Is that just by request?
You mean which projects?
By funding request, yes.
Yeah, so basically, the board had me use my discretion to pick items to fund in this year versus next year, and they just gave the total.
Right, and that's fine. I guess my question is, though, why has it been preferable to use that process versus ending one year with a bigger surplus and then using that as revenue in the next year? Because it looks like we cut money out of the 20 budget that we really didn't cut out.
Well, we cut it out of 20 because we don't need as much.
Well, I know, but we didn't cut it out of the budget. We're still spending the money.
I agree.
Right, so I'm just saying, I think it's clearer
Isn't
to.
the money the surplus? That's what I asked before in terms of if there is a surplus, it goes to the general fund, which is not money you're going to draw from for these types of things.
That's correct.
So if you,
Well, that's because we never have. But we use 400,000 of the general fund every year in our budget.
That's right.
So if we had a surplus in this year, for instance, of 200, just make up a number, right?
I know where you're getting at, and yes,
use
you could do that.
We could use 600.
You could have done that, yeah.
And then I'm just saying it's budget to budget, and it's clearer in terms, in my mind anyway, in terms of what the actual budgetary status is for each year.
That's a fair point, and yes, you could do that.
Because now,
you could
you know, people think, oh, well, we cut stuff out of the 20 budget.
Right, and it would have the same impact.
But we didn't cut anything out of the town budget because we're still spending the money. That's just a point, I mean.
At the
I
Board
understand.
of-
Yeah,
I
you
think
could
at
do
the
that,
Board
yeah.
of Finance meeting, when they cut them, they said, let's see if we can try to find the money in the current year's funds.
That's correct.
I think.
And it's
I was
been,
there.
No, I know, and that's
Okay.
historically.
That's
been
historically
Yeah,
how
the way
it's
we
been
do
done,
it, yeah.
correct.
it's just.
But for someone who's
Right.
just looking at it, it kind of looks like, oh, we cut money out of the budget.
But yes, that is
Wow,
that
that's
is a
great.
different way to do it.
But we didn't cut any money out of the budget, we're just using this year's money to pay for
Right.
it.
Right.
Now, if we need it, that's a separate discussion, you know, if we need it, but anyway, I just bring that up.
And we could certainly, when we do go
Jumped
through this
off
process
the
next
page
year,
there.
we could,
That's
that's certainly a
right.
valuable discussion to have.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't, you know, we don't have a
Or, yeah.
lot. I've been here for a while. We haven't had a lot of years where we ended up with
That's
a lot
correct.
of money, so it's great.
It doesn't happen a
It
lot.
just, because that's, I guess why I never recognized this before, where we're actually dealing with almost 200,000 that
And
we
there's more
took
for
out
ne-
of one budget.
There's actually more for next, if you see in my memo, it's actually 300,000. There's,
I just added all these up.
right, there's more for next month.
Oh, there's more for next,
Yeah.
okay. Well, anyway, my point pertains to that 100,000 too, but in any case, that's
Okay.
my question, you answered it, I'm fine
Thank
to
you.
go with.
So we have a motion and a second? Okay. Any
think
further
we did, yeah.
discussion?
And Tony, they come to you and you assess the need, if you will.
So all of these items went through the budget process. So they all presented to you in the capital budget process, they all presented in their operating budget process, you all approved the budget with them in it.
Right, we recommended it to Board of Finance, and then they cut it out. And that's kind of my point, because if someone just looks at that process, it looks like, oh, they cut that out of the budget, maybe that's good. And now we're spending the money anyway, with current dollars, so.
Well, I think the other implication is if they take it out of the budget, they're assuming it's not necessary, but that's not really the case.
Well, no, because they preface it by saying.
That's right, that's not what they
We just
said.
want to use different money.
Right. They wanted to
correct.
find the funds in this year's budget. That's what that was said, because I was there, so, okay. I'll call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any nays? No, that's it, okay. Next one is, how about 1819-23, is that what we're on?
This, yeah, and this is the only
Okay.
one on here. There's a few on here that are not. This is the only one, I think, that is not an item that was in next year's budget. This is just Warren's continual problem with ash trees.
Yep.
Yeah, well, this one and the first one we did.
In the first one, right, yeah.
And this is a line item transfer from,
From a wage account.
right, wages and rentals
I'll
to.
make a motion that we approve
Okay.
line item transfer number 1819-23 in the amount of $10,000.
I'll second that. Thank you.
Requested by Warren.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on, funding request number 1819-25, is that where we are now?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. In the amount of $6,000 to fund computers, it's deleted by the Board of Finance. This is for town employees, correctly? From
Correct.
contingency to computers, line item. I'll make a motion that we approve this.
I'll second.
Any discussion on this,
Yeah,
Tony? Anything you want to
just a
add?
question, not necessarily on this one, but I should have asked before. So, Tony, if I look at what you presented here to us, which is great, if we were to continue to approve all of these requests, we would have remaining $48,000 in contingency. Am I reading that right?
C-73.
No, 48.
Yeah, 48,000 in contingency, right?
That's
If we
correct.
went and approved all these.
Plus, don't forget you added 14.5 for,
We're gonna take that out of there too.
right,
So we're down to 34.
Wait,
let's
Correct.
call it 33.5.
that's right,
I just wanna but we only have to get to July 1st.
right.
Right. Then we
So I
got-
think we're in pretty good shape. Before we go and do all this, I wanted to make sure that you think we're in good shape for, with money.
Yeah.
I mean, any storm implications are all past us, right?
I hope so.
Well, I mean, we've already incurred those expenses.
May and June.
They
Yes.
won't be until September.
Hurricane season starts June 1st.
Yeah, okay.
Just
That's all.
saying.
Just wanted to.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on that. I'll call a question. All in favor? Thank you. Line item transfer number 1819-20, no, we just did, no.
25?
What did we just do?
You just did, 25.
1819,
So we're at
26.
26 for $10,000. Fund the Darling House improvements requested in the FY capital budget and deleted by the Board of Finance paid with current year Amity surplus funds.
Second.
Okay, I'll make the
These are the
motion.
improvements that Leland came in
Yep.
and the Historical Society
Correct.
did.
Correct. Right. We have a motion, and is there a second? Any
Second.
discussion?
Yeah, what specifically is that paying for? Do you know?
Is that like little schoolhouse that they had to like put inside? Wasn't
No.
that-
No,
Oh,
it's for
it was
the
just-
improvements at the
Ground.
Darling House, which is
Darling
for
House,
siding and
down
for,
on Litchfield Turnpike.
Oh, I thought they had like a,
This
some
is not
improvements
the
to the
like a
barn.
little
This
piece
is
of
No,
original.
no, most of this is for the house itself.
the house itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
That
okay.
barn money was coming from a grant, right, Sheila?
We're working on.
Working on a
Yes,
grant.
correct.
Oh.
Okay.
But we've actually already approved these.
You did?
No?
You,
I thought we did.
I
these
mean, by
were approved in
virtue
the
of-
capital, in the and when you did the capital.
Right, in other words, we
Right.
heard it, and by virtue of recommending it, we've
Right.
already
You have,
approved these.
you did, yeah.
We're just involved now because they deleted it and
Right.
sent it back to
Correct.
us to use this money.
Correct,
That's
that's correct,
all of these,
It's a
we
good
can
point.
discuss it if you want, but all of these we've already
Okay.
approved.
that's correct.
And where's this money coming from?
Amity surplus money.
How do we dip into Amity's surplus money for this type of thing?
Because it just goes back to the general fund.
Right.
And before it goes back to the general fund, we're gonna use it. That
Right.
was kind of my suggestion was, don't do it this way, but it's all the same money.
It's the same money, but whether you,
Just a different way of accounting for it.
correct.
And
That's correct.
And presenting it.
What about the money that we're paying to cover the deficit at Beecher Road School?
It's coming.
Coming at it.
That's the last
Hold
one.
on.
That's the last
Yep.
one coming out of there.
Do we have a motion, a second on this?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Now we have line item transfer number 1819-27 in the amount of $25,000. This is the assessor reval reserve that was requested in the capital budget of FY20.
Okay.
And this is coming from the Amity surplus funds to this, to the assessor reval reserve line item, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve this as discussed. Is there a second? Thank you. Any further discussion on this? We really
No.
have to do this, don't we?
Well,
This is
yeah.
Where we don't get this
You want to do a
done.
revaluation.
Yeah, right. which
But
we
again,
have to
we've
do.
already done
You've already
this.
discussed
Exactly,
this, yeah.
thank you.
We're
Okay,
just moving the money now.
all right,
We're just
all in
moving
favor?
money.
Aye.
Thank you. Line item transfer 1819-28 in the amount of $33,000, and this is the park tennis court repairs that were requested in the FY20 budget, as we approved, deleted by the Board of Finance, and it's from,
This is Beecher Road School.
It's actually, it's for both. It's for Beecher Road and for the town.
Center.
Mhm.
Yeah.
33,000. I'll make a motion, we approve this line item transfer. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Line item transfer number 1819-29, $38,000. Police vehicle replacements that were requested in the capital budget, deleted by the Board of Finance, coming out of Amity surplus funds. I'll make a motion, we approve this in the amount of $38,000. Second, any discussion?
So, we have a request here to replace a police vehicle. Does anybody know how many police vehicles we have?
Got a report, please.
Joe?
Yeah, we had a report, but I don't recall the exact.
Okay. I counted 15, which means there are at least 17, because 2 should be out. We have 4 policemen on patrol. Why do we have so many vehicles? Tony?
I couldn't answer that right now, but I know we had a presentation by the chief back when he presented his capital budget, and in December, and then he was again in January, and I mean, I can get that information, but this was approved
Well, see,
already and
here's-
operating by
here's-
the capital
here's the
budget
thing.
by
To
you.
They
me-
work different shifts.
What?
They work different shifts.
They don't take their cars home?
No, but I said they work different shifts, and when I come in some.
There are 4 policemen on a shift. I count 1 policeman in each car. That's 4 cars.
There's 4 policemen on a shift.
I still have at
There's
least
2
11
admin.
cars unaccounted for.
There's 2 admin, and there's
Well, and
2
both
SROs.
chiefs.
Right, so there are 2 chiefs' cars, there's
Yeah.
a detective's car, there's a
There's
Humvee.
2 detective cars.
Right.
That's 10.
And then there are all of these other cars.
I'm sure I'm missing a couple,
Well,
but
you've got the schools actually.
yeah, there's 2
have them,
SROs have them. Yep.
Right, so Officer Lynch has one, there's one in the high school.
Right.
There's more than 4 out at a time.
It's still
7,
more
8,
cars than
9,
I
10.
think are warranted.
There's 2
And
detective
I don't-
cars.
I don't know
I
that
feel
we
like that's a
should.
conversation that
12.
Did we
we
make
should
a
have
motion
during the
to
budget.
approve this? We did in second, so we're having our
Yeah,
discussion now.
we're just
Okay,
discussion.
okay,
We've made a motion to approve it. So that really is my question.
okay. Thank
The
you.
second question that I have is, I asked the chief about anti-idling technology that would save these cars from wearing out so quickly, and he expressed no interest. And I found some information, I sent it to him, and it went nowhere. And I think that needs to be looked at in terms of, efficient spending of money. I mean, why do we have so many police cars? I just don't understand it.
I think that's,
I
okay.
would tend not to approve this until we find out what
That's
this
your,
is all
that's your
about.
vote, that's fine. I will, any other discussion on this matter? Okay,
I see
go
David's
Mika.
point. I see and I agree, and I think we should at some point in time. I know that we've already had the discussion as relates to this, and we've already approved it.
Right.
So I'm inclined to move forward with it. However, I would say with the stipulation that I think there is some, I think it warrants some additional
Okay.
discussion to
That's fair.
understand that, so that when we're making these kind of decisions, we could feel more confident in terms of what we're trying to do.
That's a
So,
fair point.
um,
Okay.
What about like during, I won't be here, but next year's budget process to get an inventory, not only with the police department, but with the fire department of all of their vehicles and equipment. And then when it was purchased, life expectancy? Sometimes I feel like we just replaced a truck.
I think that was in
They
our.
actually gave us.
I think that was in our package.
So
They
then-
give us that
Then
Right.
that would answer that question then, right?
Well, it answers what they have,
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily answer
Why?
the justification in terms of,
Right.
okay, so
Why
why
they
is
have
it
it,
this
how they
number?
do it.
So
in other
we can
words?
ask that.
And I think
Very
it's,
much.
I think
It's
it's
a
a
fair
good and
point.
valid question, I really do. I
Okay.
think and also that the anti-idling technology, if that's something that can save us money, why wouldn't it be considered?
Why,
in what we'll
I
call-
I know that people don't like change, I get that. But this is, I believe, a proven technology. Now, I contacted one of the sheriff's departments in California to find out how it's been working out. They installed it on their fleet of cars. I have gotten no information back. I will continue to try to find that out. But
Okay.
it's $450 and 4 hours to install it. It seems like it should be something to be explored.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
What are we calling here?
The cars.
The car.
To approve this car?
Yes.
After that discussion?
Yeah.
Really? I'm voting against that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's a 5-1. Thank you. Line item transfer number 1819-30 in the amount of $55,000. This is a
You
fund.
see, this is bothering me to a certain extent because these have already been approved. And that's kind of where I'm coming from with why we do this process. Because if we did it the other way, we wouldn't have this conundrum we're in now. Dave's point's well taken, but we've already approved this. All we're doing is
So you're saying we
instead
don't
of
have to
using
approve this?
20 money,
Yeah,
which we really should be using, we're using 19 money.
okay.
But
That's it.
Thank you.
I don't know, I guess my overarching point is, I don't think timing-wise, we're in a position to change what we've already decided. It's just a question of funding it in a different way.
Well, we have new information.
Well, I think we
What
still
I
have
think,
to
Joe,
approve
what it
this.
brings up, in my opinion, is the process that we went through when we initially approved it. Maybe there's not enough discussion at that point in time along these lines.
If you're talking about budget reform, I've been with you for a long time, and we talked about that, you know, but we need budget reform in the worst way, so I agree with you totally. But we're not here, you know.
Right, now
We never followed through last time.
The fact that we're here now.
And we had that discussion, we don't, you know, but where we are, I'm just saying where we are here is, we've already approved these. Now, if that means something
But there's
different to other people, that's fine, but.
And the only other comment, there's new, and I'll, again, speak for myself in terms of it. If you're new to the board, you're learning the process. So you're not sure where it goes, and when we have these kind of discussions, like this provides insight into what we did in September, October, November.
Right.
So this coming September and October, November, it will become a different process as a result of knowing a little bit more as to what's happening.
Well, I hope so.
You know what I mean?
I hope so,
think-
because
I can't
we've
see
tried
that it would.
we've tried that before. You know, I advocated last time at this time, we started in July to have a directive from this board, what we wanted to give to the departments and all, and that went nowhere. So I'm all on board with you, I just hope it goes somewhere.
But see, I think this is symptomatic of a larger issue. We take the budget presentations and we trust what is presented, and sometimes when you dig deeper, you find things that you throw out because they shouldn't be there. I mean, one of the things was historic overtime in the police department for a murder, which they're not planning for this year. And Matt caught it and he took it out. But that should never have been in the budget.
What I would say is, I
Right.
think.
Same thing with the police cars. I just happened to be over there one day and I was looking at the canopies and I was looking at the police cars and they were all grouped there and it hit me, you know?
Our finance committee, I think our finance board does
We
a
have to
pretty
get back to
good job.
what we're doing here. I
So-
hate to say this, but we can have this discussion.
That's
It's
fine,
just
I'm done.
1819-30 in the amount of $55,000. This is for Public Works heavy equipment, and I'll make a motion that we approve
for
it.
a
Is there a
lease for a
second?
sweeper, actually.
Right. Sorry.
Remember the discussion.
Is there a second? Okay. Any further discussion on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That's a lease purchase? I mean,
Correct.
it's
Lease purchase, yeah.
We've already got it, right? We have
Yeah.
to make another payment on it.
Correct.
Okay. Next funding request number 1819-31 in the amount of $25,000.
That's it for the,
That's it for
Oh.
that.
That's it
yeah,
for the,
that's it, no, that's it for the,
moving money, right?
Right.
Okay, this is actually from this FY19, right, 25,000. And then there's another 10,000 for next year.
Correct. This is if you want to go forward with the strategic.
Right.
Well, so we haven't approved this?
No.
No, this is new.
This is new. But how did we get 25?
This in case you want to move forward.
There was 10 in the FY, how did we get 10 in the?
It's in next year's budget.
How'd that get in there? Did we approve it?
You did, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it was under, I think, the Board of Selectmen budget, right? Is that
Yep.
where it is,
Okay.
line item one?
Yes.
Yeah, we did do
That
that.
goes to Rika's point. We'll do better next
Gotta
time.
drill down.
But we had a motion in a second.
No, not yet. I'll make a motion, we approve it just for discussion purposes, 1819-31, the amount of $25,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on this?
Wait, so we already approved this?
No.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I was confused with that.
So I wouldn't be inclined to approve this based on what we saw.
I
and
totally
heard
agree.
today.
There was no
But if
detail
they
on
want to give
that.
us what we asked for, that detailed scope of work
Okay.
with.
Okay.
Sure, you can
So we
table
can
it.
table
We had a
this,
chance
it's
to-
okay.
yeah.
We put it in here just in
That's
case,
okay.
because I didn't know what they were gonna say, so I completely agree with you.
For me,
I'm on it,
I
okay.
agree.
Okay, so we'll bring that back, we'll send out the scope.
I mean,
David, you have something?
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, they're coming in here with a grilled cheese sandwich and calling it a croque monsieur, you know? I didn't see any substance in what they were
Right,
saying.
that's why we're gonna ask for
Well,
the
we'll
scope.
see what's in
Well, it
there.
wasn't a proposal, it was
Yeah.
just a presentation.
That's why we're tabling it.
We'll
Okay,
see what's in the detail.
okay, thank you, that's it for funding?
Oh, no.
No, there's one more.
Iggy.
Oh, the
One more,
biggie.
there's a biggie there.
Where is
Biggie.
that? Where is it?
It's on the back
This is on the back of
of
the contingency.
what we got today. It's on the.
That addendum.
Oh, the
Turn that
humdinger
over.
here,
That addendum.
yeah.
This is sustainability in
Okay,
action.
thank you. Okay.
We're going on both sides.
This is line item transfer number 1819-32 in the amount of $300,000 to fund the FY19 Board of Education budget deficit with $250,000 from ME surplus and $50,000 from special education reserve. I'll make a motion, we approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and now I will open the floor up to discussion.
This is money already spent.
Yeah,
Pretty
this is a
much.
deficit, yeah, we have to spend. we have
It
to-
might be less.
How much is in the special education reserve?
50,000.
That's the total amount?
Correct.
Okay.
So there's
Did
no
we set up a
reserve
special
anymore.
education?
The idea
year.
was,
Last year,
the
but this
idea was
year.
to set up a reserve so that in future years, if they had a surplus, maybe you can contribute to that reserve to help offset spikes in special education. Unfortunately, they had 2 bad years in a row, and so there was no longer a reserve. You're always.
Well, there will
you're
no
gonna-
longer be one now.
But correct, if you do this. You, of course, could
We
not
didn't
touch the
put-
reserve and keep it for a future year, but.
But
Well,
we
it is
didn't-
May, we're not gonna be getting any more
Right.
students, so yeah, we're pretty
Well,
sick.
you will, but we didn't fund
That's what I was.
the
next
reserve
year.
in the 20 budget.
No,
So
not.
we don't fund it every year.
no,
to
that was a
keep us
one-time idea that was not repeated.
It seems to me the way the special education is going, it might not be a bad idea to limp along and throw some money in the reserve. Anyway.
That was sort of the idea, yeah. I mean, so you can keep the take 300 from
If you want to
surplus.
we have to find
Well, I
50,000
mean,
somewhere
right,
else.
right.
Because they need 300, and we have to find the 50 someplace else, if you
No, no,
want to
I'm-
keep the
I'm
50
not-
there.
I'm not-
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
I'm not saying don't do it,
Okay.
I'm just saying,
The reality is.
we probably should have funded it 25, we have 75 in here, and then we use the 50. That's all I'm saying, it's probably not a bad idea to throw some money, because we don't seem to get a clear handle on the sped, no one's fault, it's just a moving target. I will say it's a good thing we had Amity surplus funds this year.
that's
Yes,
why
it is.
I spent 2 hours at the high school that night with Jim Zioli and Derry Gorski to get it, so.
Good job.
Tony, this 250 is gonna be used to cover the improvements.
It's also, yeah, there's also improvements to the school. There were some,
The humidity issues. and-
right, the cleanup of the humidity back in
Stuff that
August.
we spent with Van Zel.
Right.
Well, because that's driving some of that deficit.
Correct.
That's part of
That's
the-
correct.
Yeah, that's what,
And this is specifically revenue from the Amity
Correct.
surplus that's being used.
Correct.
And so I recommend that, obviously, the Board of Selectmen is going to take this up and either approve it, not approve it, and then it should go to the Board of Finance. Because of the large number we have here, and then we may decide to have a vote at the annual town meeting, or have it noted at the annual town meeting that this is
$250,000 expenditure from revenue received from Amity, and it's not coming out of contingency or the general fund.
Well, so we're using the Amity.
Good.
But I just want to understand exactly what you said for some reason. But the Amity, we got 900 and some odd thousand.
Correct, 981, right?
And you've been telling us how you're using that.
Right.
So that money, did that money come from the district to our general fund? Or where does it go then?
It
can't just hang around and.
No, I want to clarify, so let's clarify. Comes into the general fund, but doesn't go to the general fund balance.
Right. No, I understand.
Until the end of the year.
But it comes into the general fund.
Right.
So.
It's the bank account.
It's the bank account, general fund bank account.
Yeah, of course, it goes
But it's not
Yeah.
considered to be part of the fund balance until the end of the year, so we're using it technically as
Right.
revenue from an outside source.
Right, so I'm wondering why it has to go to the annual meeting.
Because the charter requires any expenditures over a certain amount to be approved, either at a special town meeting or perhaps at the annual meeting.
What's that amount?
50,000.
Well, we just did 55,000.
Yeah. And we may want to do all.
It's actually, it's 50,000 or a percent, I thought.
Yeah, but 50,000 or 3%.
So 3%.
0.03% of the budget.
So that's like almost 80,000.
80,000, right. It's a 50,000 or no more than 0.03% of the annual budget.
So anytime we spend over that, has to go.
Either, depending on interpretation, either should be going to a special town meeting, or in this case, we can bring it up, since it could be considered to be a supplemental appropriation. I don't mind
doing it, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, right, you want to understand it, and I appreciate that. So I'm not sure that all this is necessary, I just wanted to make sure for the record that we do it properly, and there's no questions.
So that's if it comes out of the general fund, or if it comes out of the,
It comes out of the general fund, it's a supplemental.
The fund balance.
General fund balance.
Right.
General fund balance, it's a special appropriation, it's not supplemental appropriation.
Supplemental appropriation.
But this didn't go into the general
Did
fund
not,
balance.
Right, this did not.
But not the fund
So,
balance.
So we're okay.
I think we're okay, isn't it? Yeah, okay. All right, then we're okay.
This is revenue from an outside source, i.e. Amity.
Right.
Yep.
Right, that's correct.
That went into our pocketbook, our bank account.
Right.
But it's
Betsy,
not-
do we have a motion, a second on this one? We do, okay. Any other discussion? I'll call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Whew.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Wait a minute. We got one more. 1819-33.
I didn't see that one anyway.
It's not there because you did it this evening.
Oh, yeah, that's right, we did, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay.
So even though you don't have paperwork, you can still make the motion.
Told him to remind me. I said, remind me because I'll forget.
I'll second.
I'll make a motion, we approve that. As
You made
as-
the motion.
$11,600 from contingency.
For the falling trees.
for-
Fallen trees and
flailing.
flail mowing.
Flail mowing.
Flailing.
Property.
Flailing.
Is there a
So Tony,
second?
that's coming out of the
Second.
48,000?
Correct.
Thank you, Joe.
Coming out of the
Any
48,000.
discussion?
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey, we still have
Don't
enough pizza.
adjourn yet, we can't. Terry.
Joe.
Oh, Joe
Joe
did,
did.
yep. Sorry, okay. Thank you. Funding requests are now finished?
Yep.
Okay. Item D, review the final year contract of final year of the AMR contract, and action is necessary. I'll let Tony take this one.
We had an AMR contract that was expired in December 31st, 2019, but the terms only went through, the financial terms only went through December 31st, 2018, with the last year was to be determined at that time. So through a negotiation, the amount is 2.5% for the final year. Basically, yeah. And then the contract itself is up December 31st, 2019. That's just the last year of the contract, basically.
For discussion purposes, I'll make a motion that we approve the extension of the paramedic contract by and between AMR and the town of Woodbridge agreement that was dated originally December 10th, 2014, and expires on December 31st, 2019. And we're approving
You're just approving
final year
the funding for the
of
final
January
year.
1st, 2019 through December 31st of
Correct.
2019. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
How much is that fund?
New annual rate of 303,723.33.
It's a 2.5%.
And that's what we, that's,
That's what?
The parties that
you agree with that number, Tony?
yes, yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Just so
Aye.
that-
Thank you. Whoop, I'm sorry.
The wording on the document seems to be a little bit, I don't know if you want to read that second sentence or the third sentence actually in the agreement set forth.
By signing below, is that the one you want me to read?
Yes.
The parties that the agreement shall be.
Agree?
Agree.
Should there say agree that the parties?
Parties agree that the agreement shall be signed.
Yeah, just make sure the
Extended
language
for 1 year.
is right.
Yeah.
You need a verb
Just
in
make
there.
sure.
Just make sure the
Agree.
language
Right.
is right.
Yeah, okay.
Agree. Thank you.
State.
Friendly amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry,
As amended.
my fault.
Nobody has any more earwax. Okay, and the next item on the agenda is permission to grant CMED credit to Medcom. You have a letter in your packet under the have you all read this? This is something we do every year, is that correct?
Yep.
Based on a population of 8853, the value of Woodbridge credit is $2,655.90. I'll make a motion that we do that. Send it to designate CMED to, the CMED credit go to Medcom. Is there a second?
No second.
Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Whew. Okay, now this one is, we're requesting to use the, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you had a question about what I was talking about, okay. You have a memorandum in your pocket, in your packet from Kelly to Tony regarding requesting to use the contractor Hinding Tennis LLC in West Haven, and this is to waive the bid process to resurface the tennis courts with a state contractor, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, for renovations to both the Beecher North and Town tennis courts. So I'll make a motion that we approve, waive the state bid process and use the contractor Hinding Tennis LLC for this, to do the renovations to the tennis courts. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Why are we doing this, Tony?
There's cracks in the tennis courts.
No, I mean, why are we waiving the bid process?
Oh, because there's a good price that we received from Hinding, and it's that's what we used the last time, and we feel it's a competitive price.
So how do we know that? We've tested that?
Yeah,
against
Adam does the research, and he
I
said
can
it's.
say also, we used Hinding for the Peace Place basketball court for resurfacing. And we didn't have the ability to go on the state contract, so we actually called and got pricing from a bunch of different places, and they were by far the best price, and they had a really good reputation.
Good.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I had a little discussion. No, it's not bad, it's not bad. I promise. Okay. My question is, do they have a performance clause in this contract? Because we've been getting burned on these contractors.
They cannot guarantee you'd have to ask Adam this question, but I believe there's, in terms of when the cracks will return, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, how long are they gonna warranty that for?
I know that there were some structural issues with the ones down here that, based on the water table, that they cannot guarantee them for a long period of time, but I think it was at least 5 years maybe. That's what Adam said.
See, when I hear that and they say, well, you know, we can't guarantee it because of your water issue, well, I mean,
it's historical.
That needs to be addressed if possible. How can we abate the water issue? You know, do we need to put drainage under there, gravel, piping, whatever? Because we get burned on all of these contracts. You come back and they don't work. They don't work out, and then we have problems, and we have to pay our own guys to do it.
I understand.
And then
do we have any data on the water problem? I mean,
we do. Adam knows a lot about it, and about how it's a historical problem, and we have to keep repeating. I mean, this is maybe the third time since I've been here we've had to do this.
So it seems to me it may be cheaper to alleviate that water problem, if it's possible. Because
Yeah,
if
I
we
don't know
keep
the answer to that.
resurfacing.
Yeah, unless the thing is,
Beecher, which was, you saw Beecher.
Oh, Beecher's.
no, the Beecher, it's all cracked, I agree, I know, it needs to be done, I don't have a problem voting
But this
for that.
one apparently we do quite often, right?
We do.
Because
Yeah.
of the water
Maybe every
situation.
7-8 years we do this one.
So maybe, yeah, well, whatever. It might be
I'll look into it
worthwhile
with him
to
and I'll ask him to put that
Yeah,
information
Dave's
together.
point is well taken.
I
Yeah.
think we have to address that and, get some kind of a warranty.
I'll ask him about that and
Okay,
see if we
thank
can
you.
report it, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, item 13 on the agenda is town
you gonna vote
council.
We didn't vote for
We
it.
voted,
I'm
yes,
sorry,
we did.
I think we did
Yeah,
vote.
We
Yeah.
voted.
Okay,
and,
all right.
Yep, I think we did.
I my vote.
That's why we glared at you.
Yeah.
Well, they were too quick,
I'm
you know?
only
Okay.
kidding.
That's all right.
Item 13 is the town council's report. Jerry?
a short report or a long report? Short. Okay. Short. So I just want to report on the Beecher renovations, just to give you an update of where we are. You all know that we had a serious humidity problem at Beecher, which led to mold, which led to a big cleanup, which led to the town authorizing the engagement of Van Zelm engineer to do a thorough report of all the systems, the HVAC and the systems at Beecher.
I can't hear you at all.
Beecher renovations, better? And Van Zelm undertook this study and came up with some very significant conclusions and essentially said we needed to do work in order to assure that we will not have humidity and mold problems in the past. So the work was approved by the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen. We went forward with that work. We put, before the work was undertaken, we put ESG, which is the company that was the general contractor, under the performance contract that we entered into for the Beecher Road renovations, which was, Sheila, 5-6 years ago, 4 years ago? 2013, okay, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And we put them on notice because it's our opinion that they were deficient in the work that they did, and they didn't properly perform, and they didn't meet the standards that were acceptable to us. I received a call from their lawyer saying they are a reputable company and they understand the issue, and they wanted to assure us that they would stand by their work and stand by their product, and they would send somebody to Woodbridge to meet with the ad hoc building committee to discuss this, and ask that I send them all the reports from Van Zelm and any other engineering reports that we had concerning the issues that have arisen with Beecher Road School. I sent all the information, and there was an individual, I think his name was Mr. Ed Daly, who came to Woodbridge. We met right out there with the ad hoc building committee, representatives of Beecher Road School, Bob Gilbert, Beth, and Tony. And Daly said, I read all the reports, I read the Van Zelm report, it looks like they've hit the nail on the head, they've raised some important issues that really should be taken care of. And ESG, my company, is reputable and responsible, and we're going to help the town as much as we can to make sure that this is corrected.
Just to correct the record, I was not there. I was at Yankees Day opening day.
Okay, Beth was not there. You were there in spirit, though, in spirit.
Oh, exactly. Okay.
So
I couldn't miss it.
he said that he would, and he said that in fact they think Van Zelm Engineers were a very reputable national company and they respected their work, and as a matter of fact they did work with them. So he really didn't raise any issues with the report and their suggested work. He did say that they wanted to have a representative from their technical team, ESG's technical team, come to Woodbridge and actually inspect the systems themselves before they made any firm commitments. But it really, we left that meeting thinking that we had a partner, that ESG was going to stand behind all the problems that we have incurred. Lo and behold, and we were very optimistic. On a Friday night, I was home trying to relax, and I got an email which sort of jolted me a little bit, and the email was from ESG's lawyer saying, we deny that we were responsible for anything. We don't want to assume any responsibility for this at all. However, we would still like to send somebody out to take a look at the issues at the school. And we met with the ad hoc committee again and showed them the letter and explained the ESG's new position, and we were all very surprised based on what we had heard a few days earlier. Then ESG, we said, okay, if you want to come out, you can come out, but you have to come out quickly because we were starting the spring recess at Beecher Road School, and we had the Van Zelm corrective work scheduled for that week when the kids were on recess, so there would be no disruption at the school. They first said that they would be able to do it, and they were going to send somebody in two days, and which would have met the time period. And we thought it was important to let them review the systems before we did any work, so they wouldn't have an added defense that they didn't have an opportunity to see anything before the work was done, and we just changed everything without them giving them the opportunity to review the systems. They then came back and said, we can't do it within 2 days, and we can't do it until after the spring recess, and that's the best we can do, and we still want to stand behind this, but we need to send people out there to inspect. We brought that issue to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance at a joint meeting, and the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, I believe, unanimously agreed to not wait any longer. We were not very trustworthy of ESG because we do believe that they are responsible for these damages, and you decided to go ahead with the Van Zelm work regardless of what ESG was offering for us. So the work was completed during the spring recess. The building ad hoc committee met. I think Beth was at that meeting.
I was.
And we got a report from our technical people of Van Zelm, representatives of the school, Jim Sesa, who is now our consultant, who is the head of facilities at Amity Road, who is doing a terrific job, and was here at the Board of Selectmen meeting, said the work was performed flawlessly. It went forward, we finished it, we believe we have answered the humidity problems, although it needs continued monitoring by Van Zelm engineers because they gotta wait for a few weeks or months of humid weather before they know it actually worked. So that's where we are now. We had some overtures from ESG offering to make some kind of, saying that they wanted to resolve this and offering some type of a settlement to the town. I think Sheila got a call from this Mr. Daly and said, we still want to stand behind the work. We want to come out and see if we can work with you. We have not done anything with ESG, although we are going to contact them again to see what they had in mind. But there has been some opportunity to try and recoup some of our losses from the party that we believe is responsible. So that's where we stand. I'll answer any questions.
So if they continue to talk out of one side of the mouth and say,
we're going to,
and then the lawyer jumps in and says, forget all that.
Right, same kind of thing. Right.
So are we contemplating action against?
So what my proposal is that we find out exactly what ESG's proposal is, very short, in short time period. I would bring that back to the Board of Selectmen, and we would make a recommendation as to whether the Board of Selectmen wants to authorize litigation. We would have to engage litigation counsel who has experience and expertise in construction litigation, and we will move forward. It could be expensive, but then again,
we'll make that decision.
You got to make that decision, yeah. Right?
So
exactly.
My other question would be: is it AKF John Rice, our representative? Do we feel there's any liability for those folks?
Yes, we do believe, and they've been involved in the process all along. They've come to meetings, they know what our issues are, they have been discussing this with ESG, and when ESG's lawyer contacted me, said that AKF is together they're working together in trying to come up with a resolution for us. So I guess it's going to be a shared responsibility. If there's a settlement, and if there's not a settlement, we will certainly look to see whether AKF should be a party to anything we do.
But as of right now, they're sort of working to reach a settlement.
ESG is for sure. Not with me, but Sheila did get a proposal for some kind of a resolution, which was not what we would accept, but it was a start at least. Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
So the ideal resolution would be to cover all of the excess costs that we've incurred?
That's the ideal. Unfortunately, in the law, as some of us regrettably know, very rarely do you get your ideal situation. You try and do the best you can and get as much under all the circumstances. So, yes, the ideal would be get 100% of what we got.
There is no ideal. The only ideal would be we tell them it costs $100,000, they write the check.
Right. And that's
not going to happen.
That's unusual.
And if we have to we shouldn't talk.
We shouldn't talk about it. That's it. Right. No, exactly. We want 100%. There's no question about it. Just let me report very quickly. You all know we have a special act that's pending in the legislature to extend the time within which the town needs to convert our notes that were incurred for the original Country Club of Woodbridge financing to permanent bonds. The time period expires by July 1. So by July 1 of 2019, we must convert those notes to permanent financing to the bonds. We asked representatives in the legislature to see whether they could amend the law which says you can only keep those notes outstanding for a period of 10 years. There is a special act that was unanimously approved by the committee, I think it's the Finance Committee in the House, for an extension for the town of Woodbridge only to give us 15 years from the date we took out the original loan, which would give us an extra 5 years. The reason is because there's a possibility that a referendum may take place, and if the property is sold, we do not want to incur a significant amount of financing costs, council, interest costs to convert to the bonds, and we want to see if we can get an extension so we have a little more flexibility.
So they have to act on that by July 1, though, right?
Well, it's less than that. I got a call the other day saying that it came out of committee unanimously, and now it's got to be voted on the full House of Representatives, and then it goes to the state Senate for a vote. The House of Representatives is probably going to take it up this week, from what I hear, and it probably, hopefully, we keep our fingers crossed, it'll get approved. They had a couple of questions of me the other day, and I gave them the answers. Then it goes to the Senate, and hopefully it gets passed in the Senate. We need to know one way or another. Tell me when.
We have a note sale bond or note sale of June 26th.
Right.
Which means the document probably gets advertised on in the market probably about a week before.
Right.
So it's like around June 19th.
So the legislative session ends on June 4th. I told them that we need to know by no later than the end of May, one way or another. If it's not passed by the end of May, we're not going to have any choice but having to go ahead with this. So we've got, unfortunately, as many of you know, Joe knows more than anybody, that things like this get stuck in the legislature and they never get acted upon because they're dealing with big issues and no one really cares too much about the town.
Could be one of the reasons.
Right. Whatever.
Doesn't Joe know anybody up there to grease this through?
All he has to do is ask.
Well,
we'll ask you. When we get to the Senate, we got to get it out of the House first, which I think is going to happen. I hope it's going to happen this week. I just wanted to let you know that it looks good, no guarantees. If it doesn't happen within the next couple of weeks, we have no choice, but we have to convert to bonds, or else we'll be in default of our notes.
Correct.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So, worst case scenario, well, not the worst case. Supposing we do supposing we do get an extension for 1 year.
And 5 years.
5 years. 5 years. Sorry.
Right.
Okay.
When you make the decision.
I withdraw my follow-up question.
Right.
Then.
Okay. We've asked for 15 years from the date of the obligation was incurred.
5 years.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right, that's it. Okay, item 14, Assistant Administrative Officer's Report. Betsy.
You have in your packet, an event an application holding at the Woodbridge Child Center, the daycare over here in the Center Building, is requesting to hold a food truck festival on September 20. This would be their second annual event of this type. The first one was last year, and they were very pleased with it. The weather was really threatening. It ended up not raining, but they still had a pretty good crowd, even though the weather was not very nice that day. And they're doing things pretty much the same way. Again, they have approximately half a dozen food trucks and a DJ, and they put up a couple pop-up tents and some tables for the kids to do arts and crafts and other things like that.
I make a motion to approve the application.
A second.
Any questions or discussion?
question, I'm just looking through our form, and part of that is, okay, I will submit certificate of insurance according to the guidelines. Yes. Town council, we will get a certificate of insurance from the sponsor of this event, which is who? Childcare, is that?
Us, isn't it?
Is that us?
Yeah.
No.
Childcare.
Woodbridge Child Centers is
That's a separate.
They're a tenant of ours.
Okay, great. So, and that's great. The other question is, though, the vendors that come, do they ask for a
Yes.
certificate of insurance?
And that's what they
for
did
that?
last year. We got
And so
one for
you'll get
every
them on
food truck
file, okay.
and the DJ.
All right, cool. That, by the way, should probably be on our form, now that I look at it.
That's a good point. So
If they're bringing in
vendors,
vendors or anything like that.
Wait, did we vote on it?
Wait, should we vote on that?
We did a motion in a second, I don't think we
Yeah.
voted.
I think you did.
No, I don't think we
No,
voted.
all in favor?
We just
Aye.
voted.
Thank you.
Just want to let you all know about some exciting developments in economic development. Since the last time we met, I visited 3 different new businesses in town, and I've written stories about their move to town. 2 of them have been in the paper so far. The Street and Savory food truck, Paolo Restaurant, as Beth mentioned, is opened today at 5 o'clock, so poor timing for us, but congratulations to them. And Harris Web Works, they're a web design company that specializes in business-to-business e-commerce, and that one should be published on the town website, hopefully if not this week, then next week. And next week, the EDC is hosting a business happy hour at Saloon on May 14 at 5 p.m. And the goal is to provide a fun and relaxed networking environment for our local businesses so they can meet each other and learn about each other and learn from each other. Excuse me. Also want to give you a quick update on the beautification plan. You've probably all noticed the flowers that have been added to the garden outside. Soon we will be adding benches and a couple plaques to thank the donors. And Adam will be ordering some trees for the green. He had identified 3 shade trees to go on the green. 2 of them are in the process of being paid for by donors. And we're also moving forward with a plan to install some flowering trees on Fitzgerald, the area on Center Road where the trees were taken down for the vegetation management project. So we are moving forward with that plan, adding some nice trees. We still have more trees that people could donate. The form is on the town website, and same goes for benches. If other people are interested in benches, we've got a list of locations and a form online. And one more quick update. Told you a couple months ago that I'm working on the trails in town, and I've got a lot of great data that I collected from the survey that I mentioned to you all, and I'm now working with the Conservation Commission, the Parks Association, and the Land Trust to figure out the best way to coordinate all of our efforts and make sure that our maintenance efforts are as coordinated as possible, because although a property line may end within a trail and the maintenance changes from property owner to across the borders, the people walking the trail don't notice that, but they definitely notice the change in the maintenance. So we're working to coordinate all of that and make sure all of our efforts are in line with our larger goals with that. So that's it.
Good, thank you.
One of the things you mentioned to you at the recreation meeting that I attended, there was a notice, just somebody mentioned the fact that one of the signs at Fitzgerald indicate that the gardens are privately owned, and they weren't sure if that was the case or not, so I told them I'd check with you.
I'll look into that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Item 15, Communication Director Grant Writers Report.
Okay, very quickly, you have in your packet some communication that was received from the Army Corps of Engineers. We were in touch with Rosa DeLauro's office in New Haven, and Beth spoke directly to Ms. DeLauro. Their interpretation of the language in this letter was very positive. What they said was this is a signal that the project needs to now be inserted into the Section 205 program funding, which is under the Federal Water Resources Development Act. So that is last funded last October, and so we will be looking, Rosa's New Haven office has discussed with the DC office the process of getting it in line for funding in the next round of that program. So wanted to give you some explanation of that letter. Last night, as David mentioned, CUPOP kicked off their first Tuesday series of workshops. It was very well attended. I think there were 25 people in the room. That was about invasive plants, and the program presentation was fascinating and full of information. We've asked for that to be made available so we can put it on the website. We also circulated a little sign-in sheet so people could add themselves to the town e-news. As we continue that, we'll make sure to get the information out as soon as we have it posted.
Nancy told me this afternoon, by the way, when I was on the phone with her, about Japanese barberry.
Yeah.
She said that they're actually going to come back in the fall again because it was so well attended.
That was the discussion. It'll
Right.
go to Coupon.
Which is
we
good.
want to continue that first Tuesday series. In that vein, there is one
It was
scheduled
very good.
for the first Tuesday of June, and that will be about water quality. And there'll be a similar presentation and then follow up, and we'll look to put the information on the website as well. So both at last night's meeting and at the preliminary budget hearing, we did distribute that sign-in sheet so that you could add yourself to the town website. We are looking to make more resources available there and then communicate that out to people. We'll also have a similar sign-in and sign-up sheet at Red Letter Day, and I wanted to send around the rescheduled date. I know we sent this out by email to you, but it is going to take place now on June 1st. I wanted to report to you that the Sustainable CT Program donated tree has arrived, and Adam has actually planted it. It is on the library lawn, and we will be soon receiving the dedication plaque for that, so we will make that dedication part of the event. We hope everyone can join us. We're going to kind of be sharing the space there in front of the library. That same day, the dog park's mutt strut is taking place, Friends of the Library. If the weather is nice, we'll kind of spill out onto that front lawn, and then the garden club will be sort of around the corner in the Grove area. So we're, again, using all of that area. David also mentioned that CUPOP has been going through, in their meetings, the list of items that CUPOP is meant to work on is pulled from the Plan of Conservation and Development, and David was reading from that list. There were a couple of actions they wanted to take as next steps, one of which is posting air quality warnings, and both posting them as signs on the ball fields, but then we also discussed getting that word out by email lists and contacts digitally, maybe text messaging, something like that. So when there's an ozone exceedance day, which is a posted thing that happens, we let families know before they bring their child to practice, what does that mean, what precautions can you take, et cetera. So that's one of the things CUPOP is going to work on as well. And then lastly, I just wanted to tell you that I've been working with SCROG in pursuing opportunities with the Connecticut Green Bank and the UI Energy Efficiency Program to explore solar options, installing panels on town buildings. I submitted to them 8 buildings that are in our electricity portfolio with UI. They've come back now and said that 6 of them are possibilities. So there is no commitment at this point. There's no commitment on behalf of the town or any cost. But the next step is a technical and feasibility review with the Green Bank's partnering service provider. It was also suggested that the animal shelter should be added to that list. It wasn't currently in the list. And then there are also options for ground-mounted solar arrays. So we heard a gentleman earlier today talking about solar options. This is an opportunity we may be able to determine if it would make sense at any town-owned property. So we'll find out some more about that, what would qualify for this program, and I'll keep you informed of that. That's my report.
Didn't you have a proposal over at the
landfill?
The landfill, years ago?
We did.
That got stranded.
Yeah,
No, they said it was, I
There's
thought
not
they
phase 3 power there.
Right, they said they couldn't get from there to where they needed to, or something
Is that
along
what
that. It was very, yeah, it was
There is
very
phase 3
technical.
power relatively close to the former country club property, though. So that's
Right.
It's a different.
Right, it's a different scenario. That sounds like a great
It
opportunity.
also has a huge south-facing roof, but that's neither here nor
Well,
And there's also ground mounted.
probably you'd be looking at ground mounted over at the
Yeah, the country club.
And so the key is, most of the time, it's a newer roof, because you don't want to put this array on there and then have to do a roof project. So the animal shelter was.
It needs a new roof.
Yeah, that one does need a new roof. It could be the roof. But we'll keep you up to date as that moves forward. Hopefully we'll have something to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got it.
Okay, item 16 on the agenda is to acknowledge receipt of, you have in your packet the annual town clerk's report is from July 1st, 18 through 4/30/19, and also the monthly from 4/1/19 to 4/30/19. I'll make a motion, we acknowledge receipt of both. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Guys?
Aye.
Dave?
Yeah.
Joe?
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, okay. We have also in our packet minutes of April 10th, 2019. I'll make a motion that we approve the draft minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Any
Aye.
discussion?
Aye.
Wait, no? Okay.
No, looked good.
We're not in a rush at all. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And lastly, on the agenda is Brian, come on up. Brian Luciani, to discuss our health insurance renewal and with action as appropriate. Thank you for your patience.
So, I'm in front of you tonight, as I have been for many years, to discuss the renewal and to look for authorization to move forward. To give you a quick synopsis, our medical's with Connecticut now for the second year. Our Medicare supplement is with Blue Cross. It has been for forever. Dental and vision are still with Blue Cross, and our group life is with Hartford Life. The overall increase this year amongst them is 7%. The medical was 7.45. Last year was 8.51. The group Medicare supplement retiree increase was 0. The dental increase was 1.99%. Last year it was flat, 0. The vision was 0, meaning no increase, and the group life was no increase. The trend this year actually has gone down a little bit from last year. So between the carriers that could conceivably handle our benefit structure, Anthem, Aetna, Cigna, Connecticut, United Healthcare, Harvard Pilgrim, about 10.8, and the bulk of that is pharmacy. That seems to trend a little bit higher than the medical. And you tend to get trend renewals when your loss ratios are between 80 and 85%. So we're having an okay year this year. We're trailing 12 months, we're at 86.6. There were some bad months last year. The trailing 24 months are at 92%. Our most comparable renewal year, in 2015, we were with Anthem. We had a loss ratio of 84%. We ended up with a 9.29% renewal. I want to emphasize, we did not go out to bid this year to all the carriers. It's the first time in many years we haven't, because we have 13 active large claims between $50,000 and $200,000. And it's just not a picture you want to paint or anybody else to look at us at this point. Comparatively, last year we had 7. Now, a couple of those look like they're settling. We track them every month in terms of new cost, but 13 is a really high number. And of course, we run all our stuff, since we don't necessarily trust Connecticut, we have our own actuary, and based on and this goes back a couple of months, she came up with 12.3% was her conservative number. Tony and I talk about this. That's a conservative number, worst case, we would never have settled for that. So they actually came in with an 11.4% increase, and having discussions with them that we weren't sure we were going to go out to bid, they offered us a 9.3%, what they call a no-bid basis, which is, we'd like to have you for another year. If you don't go, knocking on every door and making us come down again, we'll give you 9.3. But I thought we could actually do a little bit better. And Tony and Al and I had talked a little bit about, for those of you on the commercial side, you may have heard a lot of chatter about level funding and things like that, where you have a good claim year, you actually get some money back. So Connecticut doesn't do that often, but they do it enough, and they've got a decent product. So we went back to them and asked for, if we were going to do a no bid, we'd want it at 7.5 at the worst, and they came in at 7.45. But the best part of this is that we negotiated a shared savings, and what that means in English is they set our target loss ratio at 82.2. And granted, that's literally 4 points under where we are now, but we've had years in the past with Anthem where we've been under that number. And for every point we're below 82.2, so if we're at 81.2, for example,
we'll get money back. It's 50% of the quote-unquote shared surplus. Every point basically gets us back about $20,000. And if you look at our cycle on years where we've had 2 not so great years, we tend to come back the following 3 years pretty good. So we thought this was an opportune time to do that. There's no downside. If we have a horrible claim year, we don't owe them any extra money. We just simply have to deal with our renewal then. In order to get the money back, we have to renew with Connecticut in July of 2020. But if we're running that well where there's money coming back at us, we're going to get a great renewal. They're not going to push us out the door. So I actually thought this was better than what we might get, because a lot of times, certainly with United Healthcare, Aetna, and others, if you want shared savings, you have to give something up. So instead of a 7.45% renewal, they'll say, you want shared savings? Give us 9.45, so we have some upside. But they stuck with their number. We have the shared savings built into the contract, so if we have a good year, we get money back. So I think it's the best of both worlds. We do have a strategy, by the way, that we have a high deductible health plan, so consumerism's an important part of this. Connecticut has identifiable preferred facilities where what you do costs less than, for example, having done in a hospital setting. And they identify not only the labs, but radiology facilities, advanced imaging facilities, outpatient surgical facilities that should make sense for our members to not only use, but to pursue, because at the end of the day, it's still their money. We fund some of it, they fund some of it. So we think with a re-education campaign, which will roll out in July, that we got a good shot at least getting some people to be a little bit better consumers, which is where we need to go to get that money back. Questions?
Looks like you did a great job. The only question I have is, if we do this, and I think we have to, but that means we have to go with Connecticut next year too.
To get the money back, would have to.
To get the money back on the shared.
Correct. So if we get a shared surplus and we want to collect that money, we need to renew.
So that just remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen.
Got it, okay.
And if it wasn't much, Joe, like we do this on the commercial end all the time, you'll get an Aetna case or something that the shared savings is all of $15,000, so you've got $7,500 coming back, and then you'll have Anthem or Cigna that's $10,000 a month under. It's an easy decision.
So we make that decision.
Yeah, you pass up the shared savings and you go with the real savings.
Okay.
But it's something, and they've done a pretty good job for us
They have.
the last 2 years.
They have.
Yeah. People seem to be happy.
People seem pleased with it, absolutely.
Well, I want to learn your negotiating style, because you asked for 7.5 and they offered 7.45.
I thought the same
That's
thing.
not happened to me often.
Wow.
So
That's because they're
maybe
willing to
we
give
can
you a
have
lot
coffee.
And just
All right, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
You have some large active claims here. Those are trailing claims, so going forward with another company, that should not affect.
they're not really, I wouldn't call them trailing, they're active claims.
They're active claims, but
Yeah.
they're with whatever company now that is processing them, no? So if Connecticut is holding them and we go to,
No,
you
they
know,
still-
True, but because they're active, Dave, they're accumulating more dollars and significant dollars every month.
So we're looked upon as a greater risk?
We're looked upon as a greater risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There really only 2 of those are in the process of dying down right now.
Now, and
And several of them are prescription only, which tells you that that's probably an ongoing thing that's not going to change. Some of the tier 4 drugs, the specialty meds, are just so expensive.
Yeah, okay. The other question I have is, these loss ratios that we've had have been pretty high, and the what do you call it, cost sharing or savings, whatever it is to a ratio of 82?
82.2.
Yeah. How likely is it that we're gonna hit that, and is it worth paying an extra premium to try to get back some of that money? 'Cause
We're not paying any extra premium to get it back. And how likely would hit it of the last 12 years, 4 times we've been under that loss ratio number. That's actually pretty standard number.
But that's the motivation to go with Connecticut.
No, the 7.45 alone was enough to go with Connecticut. It's better than what we would have got anywhere else. The shared savings is just a kicker where, you know, if you said, boy, it would have been great if we came in at 0. Well, if we happen to have that really good year, we're going to get money back and would likely renew with them anyways, because there's no way they're not going to give us a great renewal if we're under that loss ratio. And we'll still bid it.
Right.
And if somebody else wants to really get aggressive and save us more money than the shared savings, we'll go there. That's no problem.
What's the deductible on these plans?
The plan now for just about everybody is a $2,000 high deductible health plan for single and $4,000 for family.
So are these people eligible for a health savings account?
Yes.
Yes, we have those.
Yep. We have those, and for anybody who is ineligible, so anybody who's Medicare eligible or is covered by another plan or just isn't eligible to open up, we actually give them benefits through an HRA. So, yeah, we don't discriminate.
All right.
The increase in claims has zero to do with the provider, correct? It's not
No.
as a result of what anything that their policy is
No,
changing.
if anything, the providers are getting less. The only thing I see going up is the pharmacy costs are going up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we have to make a motion to approve it.
To approve this renewal, I think it's a very competitive, I had clients that were at 18% this year, so you did a great job.
Wow.
So I make a motion to approve the 7.5.
4.5?
4.5, right.
Joe got it?
Got a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion, questions?
There's other, 7.45 is medical, there's other items in there.
Got to put them all in
Well,
there.
why don't we just make the motion, we approve as.
The renewal.
July 2000
Yeah.
renewal is brought to us by
Yep.
Brian. Okay, that's great, okay. That's the second, you accept that, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Good job.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have two things to tell you before we adjourn. Number one, quick, stop it. No, don't, no. The Amity referendum was approved.
In all 3 towns.
Yep, in all 3 towns. And I just forgot to remind you during my report, Memorial Day, Barry Josephs has a nice program every year, and it's Monday, May 27th on the town green, unless it's raining, and then it's indoors. And I'd like to invite you all to please come. It's 10:45. 10:45. Maybe we could get an email out to everybody inviting, just as a.
Summarizes what we did tonight.
There you go. Okay, thank you.
I prefer a
Now a
formal
motion to
invitation.
adjourn. Thank you.
All right.
All in favor?
All in favor.
Second.
Thank you.
Aye.
Ooh, we can still go down to Palo. They're open till 10.